Hey everybody, you know what time it is. It is X's for Show here on YouTube. You can check out your favorite media response team all over the socials at X's for Show. As for me, I'm Nico, and you can check me out at Nico Action. That's NICOACTION. Nailed it!
And I'm TK. You can find me at TK Elemental. Lower Decks. Lower Decks.
And that makes me your producer, Kevo, and you can find me at KEVOREALLY. Had we not heard that there was a new season of Nailed It until like a month after it was dropped. Although also,
has it
yes,
been that
Lower
long?
Decks, Lower Decks. Yeah, it was like August.
Well, but I feel like you said the same thing about The Witcher. You were like, they stealthed me a Witcher. You were like, how'd that happen?
I would say the difference with The Witcher is the hype leading up to it was big enough, and I think they have given up on acquiring audience. There hasn't been a new game. There's really there's not a lot of
Witcher, where it is what it is.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. I mean, we lost Henry Cavill. We clearly have fucked up beyond all recognition. You're either here or you're not.
That was
why
literally
waste
part of their ad
advertising
campaign.
dollars? Yeah.
Part of their ad campaign was, yeah, he's in these.
Which is why, Nico, I was talking to you about what Nicole Byer's salary is like for Nailed It, only because it seems conceptually so niche and so like a one-off product for like a handful of people that makes no money, but at least it's there. And on the other hand, the budget is phenomenal. The effort is clearly there.
And I just need to say one more, but like the thing about Nailed It is that when you think about like worst cooks in America, I mean, it's Tyler Florence who, the cakes, but like it's Tyler Florence. When you think about American Idol, okay, that's Lionel Richie sometimes. Okay. Yeah. Guys, no, I really need to stress this is Jacques fucking Torres. Like, there are literally so few people of his caliber in food.
I think
period.
A lot of it goes down to what friend and contributor Tori said in the comments, which is Netflix puts less and less marketing into shows the longer they go on. They drop a trailer and then shrug. And for how many years and seasons Nailed It has been on, unfortunately, even with this really awesome format and style change, that is just very true of Netflix. They just kind of, there you go, as stuff gets older.
Well, now we have a thing we like to do. We like to do our opening question to get ish going. So the question here today is, what would you do badly on TV for money? And here's what I'm going to say. A friend of mine one time said to me, Nico, I just need you to understand that when you only talk about things you do like you're very good at them, it seems like you think you only do things well. To which I replied, right, that's because I make sure to only do the things I'm good at, period. So it's actually really hard for me to be comfortable failing in public. That's not something I really excel at. So,
So there's one right there.
I guess what I'm saying is I'm too good at everything. No, I think
sometimes I sing too beautifully.
Ew. I think my really big thing is I would probably like knit or like sew, crochet, something with my hands that's crafty. I know the shit I draw is ugly. So I would be excited to, Jesus Christ.
Dumb, clumsy bear paws.
Tori says I do anything for cash.
Yeah, get it.
Start your OnlyFans or get out of here.
Build your empire.
All right, but so I guess, my two answers are number one, knit, or number two, I would love to be in a giant like mascot suit and like have to cheer on a team and like learn all of the rules of the sport so that like I have to like cricket. Like I would love to be Kevy. What's the thing that makes me laugh? So Mr. McGiblets.
Massage.
I would love to be the Mr. McGiblets of any sport. Mr. McGiblets is the single funniest thing I've ever seen on television.
No, it's not.
I cried.
Teak, do you have one?
For money, I would do like any sort of carpentry or construction or trade, because I have to do a lot of that stuff for the inn, and I do it really poorly, but also it has to get done. And so I have been in the place many times of like, this is bad and embarrassing, but it also, the house will fall apart if I don't do it. So, I think like a competitive carpentry show would be amazing. Anybody call me.
Hosted by Nick Offerman.
No.
And this is a chair.
Sick
and
of Nick
over
Offerman.
here, we have another chair.
No, you know who I would have host it? Ben
Dua
Percy.
Lipa? Oh, okay, Ben Percy. That's awesome.
Ben Percy and Dua Lipa, yes. And
I was just thinking about how Dua Lipa stole all of Justin Timberlake's cool. Like, she stole his career.
Hence my reply to your message about his new single.
What was he doing with it? He was on Trolls. It's fine.
What did you hear about it? Justin Timberlake has a terrible Trolls addiction. He's on Trolls.
So yeah, I would do some kind
I
of
do things badly on TV.
I would do some kind of carpentry competition, and it would all be like inexplicably poorly measured. It would be 8 steps too many, and I know so many dudes would just be yelling at the screen about what an absolute fucking jabroni I'm being, and I know that because that's how I feel about
you mook. All right, to our other mook, and then actually we have the mookiest mook,
and we have a monk. Yeah,
yeah, we have cutest jabroni to ever. So
first, I guess I'd probably. My thought when I saw the question earlier was draw, because I feel like it should be something that is in your actual wheelhouse, but something you don't feel confident at, and something that isn't entirely in your skills. Definitely drawing. For me, because I would not do something like I would truly find embarrassing badly on TV. Like I wouldn't be able to sing badly on TV. Pass. Not worth the money.
Well, I gotta know what Jonah. Our secret super special guest.
Sure.
I gotta know what Jonah would do badly on TV for money.
What do you
Actually,
think, Kyle?
I have a specific question for Jonah.
What's your specific question?
So you are very good at Snap. You are notoriously
By
ranked
that,
and excellent.
Means covers of Rhythm is a Dancer by Snap.
If you were put in a reality competition where you knew like at least half the competitors were ranked higher than you and might just absolutely stomp your ass, would you do a competitive Snap show?
Sure. If there was I would do that if they had like a Snap house where we all went back to after that challenge for the day and there was drama.
Just
we
like
all lived together.
Get drinks, making a brick oven pizza. Yeah.
Everybody, welcome back to Deck House.
I respect that.
Counts. The Bad Girls Club of Marvel Snap.
Yes.
I'd absolutely do it. I also I'm not committing to it. None of this is legally binding. Bring back Fear Factor. I'll do that.
Okay, I want to raise the stakes a little bit. Number one, not enough people appreciate the magic that was Godsmack. I mean, back when there were not a lot of hard rock acts with a lead singer with a very sexually enticing tattoo around his belly button, and always showing it when he sang like this with his eyes closed, right? But Godsmack.
It was just
really
him and
cool.
Shifty Shell Shock.
Oh God, starry-eyed surprise. Oh God, for XXX's first show, I have a joke there, but I want to. One of the coolest streamers on the planet is in the room, and also Blake.
Is that Blake who do be buzzing?
It's Blake. It's Blake who do be buzzing. But so there was an MTV show called MTV Fear, and now I do have the whole thing, but it was sort of like Fear. Yeah, I have it. It was sort of like MTV Fear meets like Fear Factor. Meets,
You got to tell the best part though.
So they would go to these haunted locations and they would make the people do these weird challenges like crawl into this used coffin and
You
then
are still
have
not
one of
telling
the
the
other
best part.
people bury you. Oh, Godsmack did the theme song. What's the best part? Because I'm saying all the best parts to me.
That they had to wear the camera suits.
This was great.
Okay, yeah, that is the best part.
They had to wear a steady cam basically, but it was specifically designed to be so the camera was facing them. So as they travel through this terrifying area, they're in this like 50-pound.
Because we didn't have tiny cameras or
Yeah,
GoPros
exactly.
back then,
There was
children. We
no.
had only real
We didn't even
production
have
cameras for them.
gimbals.
Okay, so
Yeah.
to Jonah,
No.
I think if you miss Fear Factor, you would really like MTV Sphere, and I'd love to show you some.
Oh, I'd also do Blackout.
Oh, Total Blackout?
Love Total
Blackout.
Blackout.
Starring
No, I
Jaleel
would
White?
not.
You know, when I think about great performances and I think about things that defined my childhood and coming to understand range and people being able to perform multiple roles, you know, I remember when Dollhouse first came out and everybody was like, Eliza Dushku, she's putting it in. And everybody was like, Toni Collette over on United States of Tara. But I think about Jaleel White pulling triple duty with Steve Urkel. Of course, Stefan Urkel, but my favorite, Myrtle Urkel. Y'all
So-
can eat a dick. Myrtle Urkel was the funniest part of that thing.
She got all up in
Yesterday-
drags.
Yesterday, and continuing next week, we did a whole
Yes.
broadcast about 1993 and how bizarrely influential this year was on pop culture. So many things. Yesterday was movies and music.
Mhm.
Next week will be TV and video games, and we'll probably go on a whole bunch of other non sequiturs. But I love you talking about Urkel because I have some really interesting things to say about Urkel, specifically in 1993.
Hashtag
Because
Urkel facts.
Did you know that Urkel did not debut until the 104th
Yes.
episode of the
Yep.
series?
Yeah, and it
Like,
used to be a very
that's-
different show.
Literally, like if the real thing people remember Parks and Rec for didn't happen until Ann Perkins
Well,
left.
And what's crazy is so many shows hit that stride so early. Like,
Yep.
you know, Dylan McKay is in the 19th episode of 90210.
Yep.
Or Fonzie is in like the 14th episode of Happy
I think
Days.
Fonzie's even later than that.
But they're not tragically late.
Yeah.
Because I think he's recurring before he's a regular.
Yeah, before he
so-
becomes the character he becomes.
But so that's even a really great segue into what I'm so excited to talk about today, which is to kick things off, Nailed It. I kind of came to Nailed It a little bit late. I thought the cooking shows had to be stuffy and sexy. So it either had to be Yan can cook, so can you, or Nigella Lawson. But it turns out there is a world in between. And one of those things is Nailed It. And one of the things I love the most about Nailed It is that it celebrates that you don't have to be good at what you do. The magic of Nailed It is be bad at this thing and we'll love you anyway. Or is it? The main thing about the 10th season of Nailed It is it's an ongoing challenge season. Now, I'm going to say right now, did anybody not get to the ending? Because
Viewer, if you did not get to the ending, come back
Watch
in
out.
20 to a half hour.
I was so excited. My pick for winner won. Ignacio, so thrilled because I definitely didn't get that with Drag Race this week. My pick for winner did not win the season. But so Nailed It celebrates being bad at stuff. That's the fucking cool part of Nailed It. And this season said, no, get better. Get better, because we've actually transitioned out of that place. In like 2018, one of the big things was, I saw that on YouTube. I can do that. Shut up. And now I think we're a little bit more at a place like, yeah, there's stuff a lot of us can do. A lot of any of us can do. But it takes a special voice to do it special. And this season of Nailed It asked us to go from people who sucked in the episode 1 scenario, which was sort of the format previously, to rising to the challenge. And that's one of the things that I think they've adopted from other shows. Maybe it's a little bit MasterChef in that MasterChef is about a home cook who becomes more, right? It's not, that's not like Top Chef, right? So anyway, this for me, sorry, long-winded way to get there, but like Nailed It was about people who couldn't getting to. And not anymore. And that's what I'm excited because this offered the show a whole new avenue of excellence. How do you guys feel about season 10 of the, Lethal Weapon-esque duo of our generation, Nicole and Jacques, Byer and Torres? Because
I'm letting one of these two go
one
first.
Byer, but it's multiple Torres.
Of course.
I really like the reinvention of the format while still staying true to a lot of the character work that Nicole and Jacques have put into their performance over the years. I think it's really smart that they took on a lot more of a backseat role, that they brought in some mentors was really cool, and that we saw a lot more of Nicole and Jacques getting their hands dirty and like participating in like the learning sequences. That was really cool.
I just want to praise you, Kevo. I'd never thought about that. She has a character on here that is different than her character, essentially, on Wipeout. That is really notable. And I'd never considered that she crafts the quality of her hosting. By the way, first ever Black host to be nominated for Best Host Reality Competition at the Emmys. So proud of Nicole for breaking that barrier. What a dumb barrier to exist. So, but super cool. Wow, Kevo, thank you for pointing out that level that she adds to the show as an actress and comedian.
I love this show. I am a huge Nicole Byer fan. I accidentally rediscovered Nicole Byer because as a teen, I grew up watching Girl Code and Guy Code, which that's a whole other can of worms regarding them not getting paid properly for doing that. But I rediscovered
Maybe
Nicole.
they should strike.
They are. I heard. Maybe they don't really like bowling. Who knows? More importantly, I rediscovered my love for Nicole Byer because I listened to one of her 47 podcasts that she's on. That is a workhorse if I've ever seen one. So when Nailed It first came out, I was like, oh, I love this, and especially as the seasons get better. It was really just fun watching the friendship between Jacques and Nicole bloom. And I just look at Nicole Byer and I try not to place any sort of parasocial relationship. But there are times where I'm like, no, I'm very much Nicole Byer. Nicole, if you somehow ever see this, I have never felt more seen than your little rant about mint and chocolate. Nobody else agrees with me about how disgusting of a combo it is.
Oh, I fully agree with you.
I'm not saying use mint toothpaste and chocolate mouthwash. I just said chocolate. I gotta go. We watched a lot of this in 2 days. So like, it's so funny watching like Nicole be like, so then you take the chocolate. And then like Jacques comes in and he's like, so did you take the chocolate?
It's at one point when she's like, Wes, I want lasagna. And I just know it's because she just was in her lasagna era where she really loves lasagna. And she went to an Italian restaurant and they ran out of lasagna and she cried. It was a whole thing.
I'm going to get lasagna just to clear the confusion.
But I feel like this show, and it was kind of mentioned earlier, is trying to take over worst bakers of America / worst chefs of America, or worst cooks.
Bakers had 2 seasons and never came back.
Worst cooks in America is wild because after a certain point, it was no longer a reality show and it was no longer what the concept which was we're going to teach these people who do not know how to cook at all, and we're going to make them into, Michelin star chefs, or teach them the basics so they can become better at cooking. And after a certain point, it delved into this weird, wacky, do these random dumb challenges that have nothing to do with actually cooking, but we'll figure out a way to tie it in and embarrass yourself on TV, as we talked about. What would you do for money? Apparently, douse yourself in random liquids and stuff to be a good chef. I don't know.
Literally, they will make them do things like ride like little wooden stick ponies in like shallow pools of milk. Like, it's just weird.
It is very weird. I don't know, I'd be embarrassed to do that. But this show, it feels like there was a lot of heart. They brought back people who were on, nailed it proper. And they were like, hey, come back. let's do this, and they kept calling it an experiment, which I thought was so fascinating.
Yes.
That they said, does this experiment work? Can you teach people over the course of 10 weeks how to create these beautiful, mostly cakes, these beautiful baking achievements? And the
Achievements,
answer is
great term. Achievements, I like that.
yes, you can
Same.
teach people how to bake, even if they're terrible at it. I think it was a success. I thought it was pretty fun.
This was my favorite season of Nailed It. Because I could follow character arc. I could see people grow. I had a crush on Ignacio from the second he came out there. I just thought he was the cutest man. So Ignacio is the gentleman kneeling in the front on the right. And just very had such energy. Frank is also quite a hottie. Frank is behind
So
him in the
cute.
back.
I found Frank was such a fascinating character for me. Especially because, and I say this in a way with love, I was so intrigued by the way he said, like, how his THs he pronounced with the D, because he said brudder and fodder.
It is some interesting elements of cultural accenting that manifested very uniquely because so much of his language was so like standard English newscaster.
It was just one of those things where I was like, I wonder where you picked that up, because it was just such a fascinating thing to me that like everything else is like, okay, he's speaking English, and I hate that it comes across a certain way, but I was like, oh, that's so fascinating that he says brother and fodder.
The
It
elements
was
bleed
pretty
through. Yeah,
cool.
I agree. It's a unique vernacular thing. Now, TK, Kevo, Jojo, and I, we watch Nailed It. We're Nailed It folk. We've seen 9 seasons of Nailed It together at this
Yes, we
point.
have.
Jojo rewatched the first few with us, and he's watched the several that have come out as we've been, together. But I don't know that the 4 of us have ever nailed it together. So talk to me about your nailing experience. Was this kind of like a cool carpenter like Jesus kind of nailing it experience, or this I don't like that guy, get across kind of nailing it Jesus experience?
Nailed it as a concept is the latter. This season is closer to the former.
So for you, nailed it as crucify your saviors, but
I feels like I am being crucified watching it. First off, right off the bat, the elephant in the room of this entire franchise is that the real villain is learning disability, mental illness, and executive dysfunction. Which just never gets acknowledged. Most people
my
being a
dyscalculia
bad
snuck up on me. I put in 42 cups.
Being a bad cook isn't really a thing. Having trouble, time management, following directions, maybe like reading in a linear way, attention, there's so many things can factor into why you have trouble following a recipe. But watching everybody scramble their eggs when they were trying to temper them, which is just the easiest thing to do.
And every single person just going, oh, every time they all mess the same thing up, just like dominoes.
You mean the mistake is the easy thing to do, not tempering eggs perfectly every time into a
No, tempering eggs perfectly is really, really easy.
As someone who's gotten it wrong several times, your ableism is showing.
Yeah, I don't know how to talk to you anymore.
I mean, I am also a person who suffers from ADHD and is on the spectrum. So, like, I know that these things are all possible, and for a lot of these people, afflictions or, I don't know what the right word is, but it's not that they're bad cooks. It's that they, have trouble with other stuff. And the show never really talks about that. You see so many times where people are just like not managing their time well, there's a lot of times where the judges are like, you need to go faster. And I'm like, the last thing this walking hurricane needs to do is go faster. This person needs to slow way down and methodically take some steps one after the other.
You need an assistant.
Yeah.
You need a life coach.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
need
yes,
a
like
personal planner.
yes, all of the above. And then there's other things like, yes, but weigh in, audience. Is tempering eggs easy or hard? I know it seems really, really difficult, and I know why. There's two reasons why people fail at it. One, they have trouble with things like the time and patience management of the very steady trickle of hot liquids, or the eggs into hot liquid, or sorry, hot liquid into eggs. See, I have trouble with it. Or they don't know, like they're given poor instructions.
See, I would win a tempering eggs description challenge.
Or they're given poor instructions. And there's also a lot of times in the show where I see people being given really poor instructions. And I get that all of this is the whole point of the show and is super relatable. It is just maddening for me to watch because I really just want to like start on episode 1 addressing the root issue and being like, okay, you are too crazy at your station right now. You need to...
Are you saying
Nico.
you want Accurate Science Theater 3000 these
Wait,
people?
hold on, wait. I have a bit.
Oh, I have a bit. Give it to the bit boy. Keba, would you do me a favor? Can you solo mode on JoJo real quick?
Okay. Nico, in the tempering eggs challenge, your skills were no yolk. You're safe.
Thank you. I'm not gonna forget this. I just want to live up to it. I have a lot of tears for safe.
Oh, I'm a fan of bus stop.
What advice would you give to me, a 28-year-old woman, about how to not be safe next week in this my 28th year of life?
Excuse me, Miss Hollywood star, in this childhood photo, it says you're 34.
Quickly,
It's
what's
too
your
early.
birth year?
It's too early. It's too early.
Yes. So anyway, all these
Nico
things
can't
really,
remember his birth year.
all these things
Look
really
at
drive me
that.
nuts. There's also little things like I wish somebody, when Jean threw away her cake scraps, I wish they had stopped and said like, hey, everybody, this is a really good learning moment. Never do that. You never know when you're going to need, to borrow.
So TK goes, oh, wow, Jean wants to buy a bed and breakfast. And I was like, wait, Jean Grey, like in the comic? This miniseries took a turn.
That is true. That's what Jean said she wanted to do. So anyway, all that stuff really drove me nuts. So I love the idea that this season is about addressing those issues and getting people some education. For me, I'm not like 100% in love with the way they do it. Again, I think so much of this is more about like, behaviors, habits, potentially mental illness. And I really feel like it's worth addressing those things. It's worth saying like, what makes you feel so discombobulated and chaotic in a kitchen space? And is there any way for you to slow down? Like in this challenge, I would have loved one where they were like, in this challenge, you have unlimited time, but you need to prove to us that you are using it.
So I think what I hear you saying is that there is definitely no logic
To human
in,
behavior?
to human
No.
behavior.
No, absolutely not.
And,
They're
gosh.
terribly, terribly moody.
Oh, he left.
Yeah, all of a sudden they turn happy. Anyway, wait, Kebo's gone.
I
left.
left. Jonah noticed. Thank you, Jonah.
I noticed. I was like, is he restarting? I'm looking at like the anyway.
That's fair.
So I want to take us to the other really important thing for me about this season of Nailed It that I think we rarely get an opportunity to see. And that's we really don't get to see an opportunity for Nicole to interact with an ongoing group of people. And I mean that really positively. Something that happens is that Nicole has sort of come to represent the manic comedy pixie dream girl. She's funny, she's beautiful, but she's not a kind of beautiful that we associate with an ugly person. She's a kind of beautiful that's been under celebrated for so many years, whether it's her, her full size figure or it's her beautiful blackness. And those two things are historically underrepresented in funny women. And so we see her with these one-off people, but as Kevo said, her cultivated relationship with Jacques, which is beautiful, as is her cultivated relationship with John Cena. She really seems to make these men laugh in a way that I can only hope to make people laugh.
Can I break in a moment that I loved? There's an episode where one of the contestants wins an advantage, and the advantage is...
Oh my gosh, that's one of the things I was going to bring up.
Oh my god.
You can choose a flavor that nobody else gets to use, and this contestant says almond, and Jacques and Nicole look at one another and go, almond? Are you sure? And the contestant goes, yes. And Nicole goes, they're not going to choose it anyway.
She literally says, can I explain to you what an advantage is?
Yes, she's like, let me explain this to you. And she walks up to a station and she's like, whatever flavor you pick, like chocolate, which is a popular. I don't think she says vanilla.
She specifically names chocolate. Yes, you're right.
And the only reason I'm pointing to it is because I was literally waiting for him to say vanilla because she said. I was waiting for him to say chocolate because she said chocolate. I thought after the almond incident, he was literally going to say, then I'll pick chocolate. But no, he picked his own unique flavor. Vanilla was a good choice. He got it. He learned, like the experiment.
It was just one of those things of like, you kind of just get in your head of like, oh, I just want this. I'm going to only use almond. And it's, no, think about the advantage. It was the very... very sweet moment of Nicole literally running over to his station being like, do you know what we're doing here?
And that's the heart of what I'm trying to get to. So Jonah, you don't get to talk. I'm kidding 1,000%. But that's the heart of what I'm getting to. We saw her bond with the two chef Baker co-hosts who were so heavily involved. We saw her develop these relationships with these individual bakers. And there was this one moment that Kevo pointed out that I just want to I want to just thank these producers for giving me this perfect moment. I say that the best moment in all of Arrested Development is when George Michael says, I got to get my shit together, and stomps his foot. It is the funniest thing. For me, the moment in this show that did that is Nicole is doing her Sonic the Hedgehog flying around the room looking for sweets that she does. And she goes to interact with the two professional bakers, sees they will literally not even look up to acknowledge her.
It's just the two of them working together on the mini challenge thing. They're not even helping anyone.
Professionals with each other, and they're like, you can like see their connection. And she literally just decides not to interact with them, smiles, and just kind of keeps moving. And like they left this in, and it was such a brilliant moment of editing because it said this was an ecosystem. Nailed It is never an ecosystem. Nailed It is a template. This provided an ecosystem within that template, and seeing these professionals, Jacques and Nicole, and these individual serving competitors who would go on to be, some of them in 10 episodes, it really dynamically shifted my understanding of who these people are in a way that excited me. And I kind of don't really need another full season, although full seasons are 6 episodes. I probably don't need another full season of Nailed It ever again if it's not this. This at 10 episodes, it earned my Netflix subscription money this month.
Completely agree with that. I would be really happy if they did away with the original for this. I did not praise enough Robert Lucas and Emily Jean.
Oh, truly.
McDowell.
Thank you for you say their names. Their names are Robert Paulson. Thank you.
They are fantastically talented chefs in their own right. They are wonderful coaches. My rant about, addressing the root issues of why these people are bad cooks aside, that it's not their responsibility to do, although I think they would be great voices to talk about that. But
I'd watch a podcast of them reviewing Old Nailed It, doing exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
I feel like Nicole Byer would be the first person to bring in a ship's counselor for a reality show too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it really does to me make a ton of sense.
We couldn't get Deanna, so we got Luxana.
What you're saying, TK, something that they maybe copy over from Worst Cooks is the first challenge should be bake whatever you want.
Yeah.
And them
yeah.
presenting it, and then them just giving you critiques. Hey, you overbaked this. Your frosting is a little too sweet. Here's what you should do next time. And then
excellent perspective, Joe.
And honestly, I would maybe even not give them cooking tips. I would, you overbaked this. What's your time management like? How were you looking at when your cakes were going to be done?
That was you specifically said time management, and I just remember one of the contestants, Emily, saying, "I have a problem with time management," and she wrote down a schedule for herself of this hour I should have this done. By this hour, I'll have this done. And it was just a very that's you just kind of see you literally watch the personal growth as somebody who's in the kitchen of she understood what the part of the problem was and she's trying to actively fix it.
Okay. And Jojo, that's exactly what I mean. That is a sort of observation I've never heard from you about Nailed It. I've heard you have that sort of observation about things that we love like Project Runway and Drag Race before, but we've never had an opportunity to talk about Nailed It where that kind of discussion could come up. So to hear that excellent perspective you bring in that Jonah way be able to be applied here is why I'm celebrating this season so hard. I just like praise and praise. Sorry.
Yes.
And then just to take it all the way back to where I started, Robert Lucas and Emily Jean McDowell are just really great. They're really motivating to listen to. They clearly have really good intentions and are really rooting for these chefs. Neither of them does like a Paul Hollywood, kind of stresses you out a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah, no ancient powerful witch Mary Berry who is just disgusted that you attempted to do magic.
She is a gnarled old tree woman.
Of baking.
Don't invoke her.
Well, the other thing I need to say is they both made mistakes in the course of these 10 episodes on air and then talked about how human those mistakes were in a way that as a guy who literally talked about his difficulty, doing tempered eggs, I make a mean marsala sauce. I'm not worried about it, but we all have feelings.
Them arguing over how to temper chocolate.
Thank you.
And I
One
was
of the best moments of the entire show.
Robert, you might want to defer to Emily, who is a trained pastry chef, on what you're supposed to do about this.
If the two of them coaching Georgina and Ignacio, that would be a cooking show we would cover primary every single week. I just really thought they were, as a teacher, I was really in awe of them as teachers. Perhaps Emily was a lot more comfortable on camera initially. Robert loosened up over time, that friend who has trouble at the beginning of Paradise by the Dashboard Light, but we're going to go all the way tonight is having a great time. Robert. But Emily was, I just thought that she was the kind of performer that Gordon Ramsay would have made a star of a show very quickly. She just really has what it takes to be a teacher in the culinary world, which is a rare trait on television where culinary performance is praised on being gross most of the time.
Yep.
Nailed it.
So Kevy, about to say Kevy, you got to talk to me. We watched this whole season in 72 hours, motherfucker.
I mean, this style of program is really where the longevity is really where the bank is. Nailed It in its original form was really good as sort of a test balloon for them as a concept, and so much about this as a concept. But now that they've really developed who they are as a team and what this idea is, this is such a cooler, more positive thing to see. And
the
I'm already
positivity is
imagining
important.
future All-Stars championships and who I would want to see back from this first season. Like, that's
Regina.
really what this sort of show, kind of longed for. You really couldn't do the same exact thing when it was nailed it in the original format because, like, you don't learn anything in your time there. And nobody really genuinely expects you to keep learning in any serious way. When you go back home on your own, this puts you through a crash course. And so this really gives you the legs that you would need to properly get yourself started.
How about the way you just said all of that really brings me to something that kind of incorporates both TK's perspective on the future of art and Jonah's interests. Something that really this kind of points out to me is I would love an AR version of this show where there's a barcode and I have the Nailed It Baking Challenge app and I scan the barcode and I get a step-by-step recipe to make what they're making on my phone. I could learn, and I would pay $4.99 a month to have that app for the months that I need it. The opportunity to learn with these bakers, to scan a QR code, to see that recipe, to go to my kitchen, make what they made, and you know what? Like, I don't, as somebody who works in educational design software, actually for a living, I feel I can comfortably say this. It's not absurd to that if you then have this app that says this is how you make the cake, you could have, which of the following problems did you run into? The following 10 mistakes are the 10 most common errors. Did the cake not rise? And then you cut to Robert being like, hey, I heard your cake didn't rise. Here's what you might want to try next time. Did you
stop giving away this $1 million idea?
This is the basis of it. I can't even.
I love the ideas you choose to keep.
This is literally the basis of phonics development.
Yeah,
for kindergartners.
But that's the whole thing. Is somebody would be like, right, but I'm not a kindergartner. I'm a grown man baking a cake. Which, the thing that none of us want to admit is
the only difference between a grown man making a cake and a kindergartner is 3 feet of height and an experience being burned by fire.
Exactly. We are all kindergartners at something, and we don't want to ever be treated like a kindergartner. But imagine if being treated like a kindergartner meant actually really learning well, not being
Literally.
not being spoken to in a baby voice, which don't do to kindergartners either, by the way. But
kindergartners and don't
Are
do
you
it to Britney
sure?
Spears.
But being treated as though you don't know anything because there's no way that you would, and you also might be lacking some fundamental reasoning skills in this area wherein you simply wouldn't know to make the connection between two things in order to understand where the problem went wrong. So you are treated, yes, like absolutely nothing, and that is not an insult. That is a fact of how much education you have received. But yeah, we don't like that, so we don't employ strategies that emulate it. But I love the idea, Nico.
Well, it's really the kind of goal behind any tutorial in a video game. The idea should be expected understanding of likely faults and likely flaws. And I think that is what this show actually sought to do. When I think about the sort of advice that Jacques, Emily, and Robert gave, it was always in the vein of, now you might see this happen. That means the following. Or they'd cut to, the cake being lumpy. And Jacques would go, that is a result of not beating enough. And, Nicole would be like, I love beating things. Ha! And she, my Nicole Byer impression
Out of nowhere.
that scream she does is so perfect. She's so funny. Nicole Byer is funny like a Lucille Ball, right? But speaking of things that are great like something else, the thing that this had that no other competition show has ever had for me that makes this show literally kick the ass of any 7 similar shows. You find me a show that's like, all right, you got eliminated. Here's a shopping cart. Take anything you want for 60 seconds. And when one of the people didn't want to physically run around the set, they said, okay, not your fault, not your problem. Somebody will run around for you and take whatever you point at. And had people run around the set for him. They let you take light bulbs, nameplates, $500 mixers. This is... I don't know. Nicole
So
Byer has
cool.
built a legacy of love. You know,
Mhm.
she is a comedian who fought her way up, and she has really built herself a legacy that represents who she is. She never once, in my experience, has said she's a perfect person. So sometimes she says stuff that's dumb as shit. But that's literally her whole bit. I'm a person. Leave me alone. I just happen to be fucking funny. And like, I don't know. I think this really exemplifies everything that makes Nicole Byer such a voice for her generation and makes me just hope that she has an unbelievable amount of success going forward. It would just be even better if she could take this to the next level and combine it with Wipeout, and we could get,
Oh my god.
make a cake while getting hit in the head with a mallet. I just feel like that's the ultimate show.
No, that is the penultimate show. The ultimate show. The ultimate show is when she takes the third element of fusion and combines it with Drag Race.
Truly. And the next step is Penn and Tellers. So anyway, great. That joke flopped. So do we have
And then
more
it's
on
baking on Mars, I guess.
Oh my god, but the American one's only one season. So does anybody have anything else before we move on to what might have been the most Aesop's Fables episode of Drag Race in a while?
No, this was great. Very happy for everybody involved.
Joe,
Hope they,
Yeah.
hope they do another one.
all right. Kevo?
What a great
nothing
shot
else?
of Georgina.
I know, right? Hey, you stop.
All right.
Loved it. Love her. I really hope we get more. And, it's reality programming, so that's super likely.
All right. You know what I would not be shocked if we didn't get more of?
Wow.
All right, I called it day one. I was like, I know as a fact that Hollywood Star is going to be in the finale, and then she's going to win. And so then we're watching this episode, and I'm pretty high because it's a Sunday after 6 a.m. And so I'm pretty high. And I look at Kevin
The Lord's Day.
smoking my weed. Oh, God.
Yeah, RuPaul's Day.
Yeah, right? And I look over him, and I'm like, Kevo, I just want to say now that Ignacio won, when I call it that someone's going to win, they're going to win. And then at that moment in time, as we're watching RuPaul's Drag Race Down Under season 3, episode 7, they show all of the queens say, well, I mean, obviously it's going to go right to Hollywood Star and she's going to be in the finale. And I'm like, obviously, I'm so sorry to so
You're going to The Hague.
many nations.
Nar.
So
Um,
that was my best One Piece pirate voice. And so
wrong. That's South African.
oh god, yeah, it's me and Charlize and Dave. So I'm saying how look at they're setting up Hollywood's clear victory. I'm like, I literally have my feet up on the bed with my feet crossed, and I'm like, Spanky all over again. I knew Spanky was gonna win deep down inside. And it's no big deal, whatever. And so then Hollywood Stars in the bottom 2, and I'm like, and now they're gonna spank Gabriella Labucci. And then I'm like, okay, you know what? That could be a double save.
Yeah, you
And
were
then-
also like Final Four. Final Four, they earned it.
Four.
They earned it.
They earned it because Hollywood Star is gonna be, and then they send Hollywood Star home. And then it was one of those things where they clearly had no post interview footage with her. There was no talking head.
They had nothing to say, yes.
Yeah. And I then said out loud, and you know what? When I'm wrong, it's like a giant fiery pit. When I'm wrong, they go down in a giant ball of flame.
Did you really? That's great.
I did. I know you were still reeling from that Voyager 2-parter, but I just, goddamn, Hollywood Star, I think you could have a run on the American. I don't take back anything I've said this season about you. I think you are an all-time versus the world kind of girl. But sweet baby, if you did not ever want to lay your eyes on RuPaul Andre Charles one more time, I would not blame you, because this was a kind of dirty that you need Lysol wipes for. But, Kevo, you had a great theory. I can't wait to get to that because it's my theory. I don't care what anybody else fucking says, because it's my theory now, and I am adopting it. It's my Inception spinning top. Anyway, I am the spinning top right now, right? So, guys, talk to me. Hollywood star. God damn, I really think she would have. Man, these Down Under girls are so talented. I don't even know what to say. I am devastated. Hollywood star is not going to get the crown. What do you guys think?
Yeah, devastated is a good word. One of the big things we really don't know a lot about for this show that we know a little bit more about for the American one is we have some inklings and understanding of what reality TV production and producers are like. So when certain things happen in the American Drag Race or certain queens will say like, yeah, I had the rug totally pulled out from under me. We kind of understand from context clues and rumors and things like that a producer said, you are beloved, Rue loves you, there's no way you're going home. And then, they get sent home for whatever reason, and that queen is heartbroken. It's a cultural thing, though, like how production works. How production works in countries that have a state-run television system. Like it's different everywhere.
I just real quick, 1990 TK. I did you dirty. I made a note to say something about it. I just wanted to say 1993, 30th anniversary of the state, and those comedians would go on to create the world of comedy that made things like Drag Race so socially acceptable. While there weren't enough queer writers in that batch, really unbelievable. Thank you for introducing that to us. I needed to give you your due.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll talk about it when we do TV. So we don't know a lot about how what the production culture in Australia is. Like, it's entirely possible that the whole time they were saying, project confidence, but just know you could always go home. And that this is entirely like Hollywood being a little too overconfident. It's also possible that her confidence came from not just how she clearly feels inside, which I love, but that they were really saying you're the one.
Because she is the one. What were they thinking?
Jonah, go.
So I'm going to talk about my theory on all of this.
Okay, and then Kevo can do his, and then we'll do theory roundup.
So last week I talked about how I was like, all right, I'm gonna predict ISIS to. I really was like, all right, for the storyline, Floor. They really like Floor. They're gonna give Floor a win, or they're eliminating Floor at the top 4, which would have been funny. Within maybe 1, 2, 3, Floor.
They gave her dead mom. That's magic on television.
So I was kind of predicting either Floor's going to win this week or she's going home, and I was like, ISIS is already shooting her specific spot in the finale.
Yeah.
And then it's up to the other 3 to try to figure out who's going to meet her there for the top 3.
I do agree. This has had an incredibly strong season.
I thought the double win was slightly canned, but I still thought both of them did pretty amazing jobs overall in the challenge. I want to give amazing props to Floor for dressing this older woman in such a beautiful way, making her look so gorgeous. Not that she wasn't out of drag.
It was a celebration.
Yes, and not to say Isis did a bad job or to take anything of her, because Isis also did an amazing job. But it is a little bit easier when you're working with somebody of a little bit of a slimmer body type who's younger, who can, walk in those 8-inch heels.
Well, who's also your body type.
Yes, that too.
That means everything that you have is going to fit.
To be fair, Isis also is a great seamstress, and I'm pretty sure she would have hooked up the costumes anyway.
Yeah.
Yes, it also does help.
When you're told that you need to make people look like Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger in Twins, and you're given people with a grand height disparity, it really helps. When one of you has the Winklevoss twins, it's a much tougher situation. And I did feel perhaps that while Isis fashion queened that shit out, like it was like literally Isis made that look expensive in a way that like that was next level tailoring. Honest to goodness, that was like
She is one of the best. I think one of the best seamstresses to actually appear on the show. Like
Agreed.
actual talent when it comes to not only design and creating, but actual making things that fit the body type that she likes.
exactly.
To
The
have in drag.
silhouette is so right.
Yes.
Yes, agreed.
So both of them did great. Nothing about that was wrong. We get to Gabriella and Hollywood, and normally I think I don't see the family resemblance critique BS, because oftentimes it is BS. The makeover challenge is often a way for them to get rid of somebody that they have to get rid of, and they make up a big excuse. I don't see the family resemblance. It's such a subjective thing that it's one of those things of like, production does not even try to hide it in the makeover challenge, because you can't. You literally can't.
No, but these were as close as Grey Goose and Grey Gardens. These were not family resemblance.
Both of them did. I was slightly confused, specifically with Gabriella, that she chose Betty and Wilma, not the reason you couldn't do the idea of Flintstones, because as we saw in season 12, Crystal was inspired by Bert and Ernie, but that it worked because it was an inspiration, not like wearing the actual drag costume of it, even though I will say it was pretty draggy.
Mhm.
Why didn't you do like Wilma and Pebbles? Like, you have the mother-daughter there.
Ooh, yeah.
I do love Michelle saying that best friends can be family, but you don't look alike at all. And so this was like maybe one of the only times I've ever been like, oh no, this is actually accurate. Both of you in your makeovers did lovely jobs. You don't look like you're related though.
Then how did Michelle win all of those RuPaul lookalike competitions?
Well, that's RuPaul's White Shadow.
It also really drove me nuts because they kind of tried to punctuate the Gabriella also isn't giving them what they're asking for conversation, and she still didn't. She was a little less comedy, but choosing to do two characters from the Flintstones is still really camp. And, it wasn't, she did less like rickety-dickety-doo on the runway, but that was not like sexy. Like that wasn't.
When RuPaul was like, that your drag is like a fucking joke to me, right? And like, so then Gabriella gets on camera and is like, I think next week I'll try to be less of a joke to RuPaul. Oh my God. She literally goes, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
But
like,
so that thing that RuPaul is talking about was a critique that we saw on season 13 with Utica Queen. And regardless of whether I agree with the critique that whatever, I think she still should have won the ball. But specifically talking about her two other looks, RuPaul was like, hey, and we saw it in the very infamous, I know you two haven't watched it, the very infamous Violet pit stop, where not everything has to be hooty-doo-doo-doo. I get that if you want to be campy, but they're looking for this range of, RuPaul, for the past 2 weeks, issued 2 challenges to 2 queens.
Yep.
She issued to Gabriella, I want you to be sexy on the runway. I love that you're campy. I find you funny. Your comedy is amazing. Again, subjective. But I need you to give me sexy.
I think what I heard her say was, I know you tell jokes.
Yes. That's what I'm
Your
saying.
art is hilarious.
Your art is hilarious, which is what RuPaul actually said. But RuPaul said, I want you to pooch on the runway. I need you to give me the Glamazon fantasy, which is not... I fully agree with RuPaul. Be campy, that's your brand, I'm all for it, but tell me that you could be a Glamazon. Show me that you can pooch, that you can model, that you could be Naomi, Heidi, Giselle down the runway, and make it work. And she told to Hollywood, I think you're gorgeous, you are talented, you can dance, you are stunning, but I need to see a little more vulnerability. I don't know if I know exactly who you are. You need to dig a little bit deeper and kind of bring something out for us. And
I just saw The Whale, and Brendan Fraser showed a lot of vulnerability. Hollywood star, you can either wear a 400-pound fat suit or you can show some vulnerability. Pick one, queen.
Kind of. And it was almost even odd that Hollywood was trying to figure out what this critique means when Floor is literally spelling it out for her, saying, when we are out of drag, you are charming, you are sweet, you are funny. In the interviews, you are shady, you are funny, you are sweet, like you are these different things. So you have the capabilities of what RuPaul is asking for. You have someone your competitor is telling you exactly what to do, and something about it just wasn't registering. So regardless of that, RuPaul issued these 2 challenges out, and then you look at these 2 contestants. You have Gabriella, who tried to at least do it. She tried to be sexy. Whether she really succeeded and found the actual median of camp and sexy, I don't think it really worked out this week. But she was trying. She was trying to give it in. And she also talked about, not only in the interview, to her very handsome makeover drag daughter. And on the stage,
like quite literally, like the dream gay Jonas. Like that was the gay Jonas cousin.
That's combining all the Jonases into one man.
Don't get me started on the Jonases, because I just started watching Claim to Fame.
Oh God. Okay. Wait, hold on. Let him finish his.
Yeah, I want to say I'm really interested in your perspective on Gabriella Labucci, because you definitely softened me on her when I am famously ugly when I don't like a queen. So I want you to keep going, because you definitely changed my heart on her as well.
There was just a moment of like, oh, and I say this as somebody who's actively working on their body, working to feel that self-confidence of when I look in the mirror, I
Did
can
you
go,
hear that,
damn,
guys?
you're
Praise
attractive. No, don't. Praise me, but don't tell me you're praising me. Praise me to somebody else. Point being, her
Praise
opening
him
up and
behind
saying,
his back.
part of why I don't do sexy on the runway is because I don't feel sexy. And it was just a very humanizing moment of someone kind of vocalizing what I think a lot of people might feel like when you don't have a lot of self confidence issues and body issues of when you look at yourself, you don't feel sexy, so you don't try. You go to comedy because if you can make it a joke out of it, you don't have to be sexy because everybody's just too busy laughing with you. And it was just like, Gabriella gave production, herself, and RuPaul what they wanted, which was this humanizing moment. We had a very funny moment this week with RuPaul telling Hollywood, why do your papers say you're 34? And Hollywood, I will say, bantering in a very funny way, some mysterious man wrote that. I don't know what man wrote that on my stuff.
I am so excited you brought that up, because I can't wait to pass that to Kevo. I want to make...
Wait, hold on, wait.
I want to have you finish on Gabriella first.
So we have all of this, and then we get to the lip sync, which I will say was the best lip sync that we had the entire season. All of the other lip syncs felt very meh, and this one at least felt very energetic. The song was good, was a good choice. Both queens tried to tackle it. However, and to quote drag icon Shea Coulee, she doesn't know the words. Hollywood star did not know the words, and she fumbled a lot of them. It was a lot of pink elephant, and unfortunately...
You could see her wish for the pandemic for a mask.
Yes. Actually, yes. She danced and gave a great performance. However, this is a lip sync for your life. What part of that do you not understand? You have to know the words. And that is a part of it.
Just to kind of highlight your point and really say how correct you are as somebody who really wished that Hollywood Star had won this season. When I think back on the sort of like maybe feeble flirting attempts that I've experienced people send my way, right? When I think about somebody who maybe wasn't quite the polished version and the polished television definition of sexy, who came to me earnestly, versus a sexy person who put in no effort. The hot guy who put in no effort got none of my time. But the person who showed beauty and sexuality in ways that were perhaps unconventional, but showed it in earnest, always got the drink. So I just want to point out that, Jonah, while I definitely wish Hollywood Star won the crown, your perspective really highlights the humanity that RuPaul occasionally dips her toe into. Occasionally. She's usually too busy fracking.
She is usually too busy fracking. And I really enjoyed Hollywood throughout the season. She kind of was one of the only people making the season entertaining. But also at the end of the day, you have to kind of do what you're asked. And I don't think she met the personal challenge that RuPaul gave her.
Now, Kevo, as much as Jonah, your interpretation is like, but what if RuPaul is a good person? And I think probably Rainbow Bright and the Care Bears are good people, but there's a different version of it where they are cartoon bullies beating up on less cool magical cartoon creatures and laughing about it in the quad. You know what I mean? Kevo, your interpretation of this is sort of like RuPaul is the queen bitch, and
That
it
is a radical interpretation of my text.
oh no,
I
queen
feel.
bitch, not like a bitch. She is the
No,
queen
I-
bitch. Like she's the head
Okay.
honcho here.
Let him
Yes.
give the theory.
Let
and
him
then we'll
cook.
get into it.
Yes. Let him speak. Is this my camera?
HBIC. All I mean is HBIC.
And yeah, okay, because it was coming across like she's a bitch. And like, no, I think a lot of what it comes down to as well, at the end of the day, is RuPaul doesn't like being lied to. And
Mm-mm.
she played it off as a joke, but, you know, we never rewound, so don't, you know, take me to court over this. But even as they were doing their banter, and she asks Hollywood, what year were you born? She said, I believe she says 1984, which is also older than the 34 that they found on her paperwork. And this board has said 28 all season. She says to Hollywood star, how old are you? And Hollywood says, I'm 28 years old. And Rue has this moment with her, thinking she's talking to someone about their development as a drag queen. And nope, no, she's not. And like at the end of the day, I feel like that also really broke a lot of trust between her and Rue. Rue is especially on guard, looking out for any sort
Number
of shady
Rue.
queens. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
looking out for Number Rue. She's looking out for herself. She's looking out for her brand. She's looking out for the rest of the girls. If you're lying about stuff like that, she's been burned by queens in the past, so
And
she
she was
doesn't.
a black drag queen in New York in the late 80s. My God, who did she trust?
Michelle Visage.
Michelle Visage.
She
So,
trusted
And
a
Bunny.
woman who everybody thought looked like a drag queen. Yes.
I am, you know, not saying it doesn't matter that she didn't know the words, because it does. I think that it is RuPaul's Drag Race though, so it is ultimately at her discretion if she cares to have noticed how much of the words you missed, because it's her show. But I definitely think that moment probably is a huge factor as well.
And I mean, you can combine your two theories. She really didn't like what happened with Hollywood Star. And yeah, Kevin, when you first said it, I was immediately like, no, that's not right, because she laughs and she like has a really good time with it. But then, you know, it's RuPaul. She is the consummate showman girl and always figures out how to play this stuff off. So you have this moment where it is a dishonesty that is not just like, ha 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 ha. It actually now means their title cards are wrong. It means
Yes.
that rant was nothing. It's, you know, she doesn't like it. So she says, well, you know, like, you better fucking bring it this episode. Then she doesn't, which I actually don't even necessarily know that I agree with, but for Rue, she didn't bring it, and Rue says,
Enough,
all right.
I guess.
Yeah.
No, Rue said bring it at 240, and she brought it
Yeah.
at 175. And
And
that's
either
still
way,
above 100.
She says, you better bring it. Hollywood doesn't. She gives her the last chance, and, you know, if at any point Hollywood had stunned, you know, if she had done the legwork with, if she had done the legwork with the lip sync, I feel like maybe Rue would have been like, all right, I'm annoyed as shit, but you are a champion, and you owned the opportunity. And she just didn't do any of that. And you know, Valentina didn't lie to her or anything. Like, Valentina wasn't punished in any way, but that was a bad week for Valentina, so she had to be in the bottom. And
It was
then
a stunt, but it wasn't exactly the same as a lie. Exactly. She acted a brat, but that's
Yeah.
not paperwork.
And then,
your sexy
you know, she
liar's
thought
arm.
she was too good to have to learn the words. So she didn't. And in this case, I think Hollywood just really thought, I'm obviously going to be at the top. I don't need to learn the words. I'm not going to be in the bottom. And, you know, this very well might have been a lesson to all
She's
those
Texas
queens.
and miscongeniality.
Yeah.
And in that image, I just think Rue looks so beautiful for all of the things we're saying about Rue's questionable judgment. I just want to remember for a second. I want to remember. I'm not reminding anybody.
I always feel like she looks like a cactus in this.
I literally was gonna say she looks like a desert fruit salad.
This look is so beautifully 80s. The hand, that like the little hand warmers,
Yeah.
with
that
the
like the
fucking
dress,
belt,
the
with
hair.
the fucking V, everything about it. You know,
She looks great in that. Can I make a quick point about something?
actually, yeah, I was gonna call for final thoughts on it, and so Jojo, if you feel comfortable, which is confident and comfortable,
Which
if
I
you feel
am.
comfortable leading us into the sort of closeout on the penultimate episode of RuPaul's Drag Race Down Under, my second favorite version of the show, more than All Stars, actually. This gave me Spanky Jackson, who I think is like really one of the best queens I've ever seen in my life. Really, just like gets my sense of humor. And I thought Hollywood Star was going to win. So I'm a little, I guess I'm going first. Hollywood Star, I'm going to miss you, girl. Give it to Isis already. Jonah, do the far more intelligent version of me just being like, wah, 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 give me my queen.
I'm going to do 3 quick notes. I'm going to try to summarize as quick as possible. The first, for a makeover challenge episode, I think this is, I can say, I want to give props to everybody. Nobody looked bad. This was just an episode of where people just happened to do better. I think
even the dogs look cute.
The dogs look cute. All of their makeover partners looked gorgeous. Nobody looked bad, and I think it's a really important thing to note. 2, to something specific to echo what Kevo was saying, RuPaul's Drag Race is a brand. Everybody who is allowed to be in the finale and in contention for the crown is specifically chosen because if they are chosen to win, they are meant to represent a very large, heavy brand that is specifically, everything is done deliberately.
But
So
not
if-
Australia.
And if I may only add, no matter what, if you're here, but especially if you are a winner, yes.
Yes. Yes, you will always, as soon as you're cast on the show, you represent the brand. But as a winner, heavy is the head who wears the crown. You are given a specific representation and duty as a winner that not everybody else is going to have. So it is a very distinct. The people they are allowed to be in contention for the crown are very distinct, and I don't know if that storyline that we got really would have put her into contention even if she was allowed in the finale. 3, Drag Race Down Under Season 3 is having a similar problem that I had with UK Season 3, where there's a great group of queens here, but I'm really hard-pressed to find, is this a good reality show season? Where's the interesting storylines? I don't really think there was a lot that was going on. I think a lot of the queens didn't have the kind of chemistry that makes for entertaining reality competition. They're not overly friendly with one another, but they're not at each other's throats. So it's a little bit weird in this kind of wishy-washy, they're sweet with one another, but it's not RuPaul's Best Friend race in a way that makes it entertaining, and it's not, Bad Girls Club where they're constantly fighting with one another and screaming at one another. And it's not even a specific cultural of, I'm sure that them being in the Oceanic region might lead to different understanding of cultures and whatever and how you just normally act. But it's just, I'm hard pressed to find where is the actual entertainment of this season supposed to come from, because there's really no major storylines going on. We might have some we're getting into people's personal stories, but that's not really a storyline. I'm just really confused as to where's production hand of trying to guide them to make the good stories. I will say the first 2 episodes we had a great story with, and we literally had the protagonist in Ivana Glaze, who gave us 2 perfect episodes with somehow her controlling literally everything, and then they got rid of her, and it's we had nothing. We actually
Ivory
had
Glaze.
You mixed up 2, Ivory Glaze and then Ivana.
Ivory Glaze,
Ivana. Did I say Ivana
Drink,
Drink?
yeah.
I specifically meant to say Ivory Glaze, who between fainting,
my twink,
literally everything.
I think you're just literally wish fulfillmenting about that handsome young man over there. And although I guess for you he's a handsome contemporary man.
That's true.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but I think this was a problem we had on UK Season 3, where there wasn't, when Victoria Scone went home due to her injury, we lost any and all interesting storylines that we had, because at that point she was the only person who kind of had any friction with Crystal. And Crystal, I think they were trying to set Crystal up to be this big bitch. They gave her a win that I agree with, and then a very questionable win, and they made her be shady with all these different things, to then her not really taking the bait and nobody else did. So season 3 of UK's Drag Race just kind of feels like, oh, what happened? There was nothing really interesting went on. I don't want to get. I don't even want to talk about it. But Scarlett, that was. So I'm looking forward to the finale, but I
just record a special. We'll air it. We'll just run whatever you want to run. It can be like a documentary, journal style. Just go through all of your Drag Race feels. We'll put it on air.
Comparative to season 2, which I thought was very much more entertainment and definitely a big step in the right direction after what happened with season 1. I don't know what the season is going to lead for the future of the series.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with one of the really big problems with this season, which is just the lack of storylines. And they kept eliminating their best people for that, which maybe it's just for Australian production. It's so important that it really not be meddled with, and but I also think we still see weird stuff happen, so I think they're okay meddling. I'm just very confused. Ivory Glaze really did have big protagonist vibes, and she wasn't on long enough to see if she even could have lasted for a 3rd or a 4th episode, but I don't think she did so badly in the times that she was in the bottom and then lip sync that she really would have been the one I'd sent home.
Especially at the end of the season now, compared to all the people who lasted as long as they did.
Ashley Madison, kind of same thing. I just didn't think. I thought she had a lot of storyline potential.
Ashley Madison is that really hot twink that drops out senior year. Genuinely.
Except this one got kicked out.
I don't know. Ashley Madison, I think, got an edit. You know what I mean? I don't think I ever got a sense of how she behaved on set.
Yeah.
I think they took advantage of a person whose identity is still clearly in the process of formation. She just wasn't ready for television, and I don't know. She had no real sense of self until that sense of self was, I'm getting kicked off this episode.
Yeah. But I do think she was of this group, one of the more outspoken ones and one of the more likely to generate any kind of plot. The person who was so I follow from the book of Mama Gia Gunn was Floor. Floor was really happy to start shit and was just trying to be cunty. And a couple times early on was I'm not being mean. I'm just saying stuff. And you could see that a lot of that was because we're on a Drag Race franchise and this is how you make it interesting. And I thought Hollywood would take the bait early on in the first episode, and then it all just fizzled out, and Floor clearly didn't want to just be the unmitigated bitch, so she chills, but the whole time she's the only one who's, poking at all.
She mostly just wants attention, and that's really evident in this lip sync where she's rocking out in the background the entire time, to the point where I'm terrible at names, but the other girl is it's Isis, right? Who's literally just like this at first, and then starts getting a little bit more into it because Floor's going all out, and she just wants attention, good or bad, short or tall, doesn't matter.
Nothing will ever beat season 13 Rosé. You have my heart. I love watching you in the background. Every lip sync, I just went back. I was like, "Where's Rosé?"
Mm-hmm.
Just bopping it like a dad. It was so entertaining. But that was more entertaining than
with her stolen wig.
I call it Muppet acting. It's how people remember you're still alive in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Truly, actually, truly.
And so, ultimately, there was a lot of talent this season. They just didn't figure out a way to make it work. I sometimes wonder if some of these really should be 3 episode mega pageants or something. I really do think they need to create more products for Drag Race that are not just international franchise, but really Queen of the Universe is gone now, so you can do singing competitions, you can do comedy things. Like, there's so many more products that this factory can turn out, and I think it would really save them from lackluster seasons. I think they're maybe overestimating the idea that we're all just going to keep being like, no, I have to watch it because it's the next Drag Race, because we're getting to a point where there's enough international ones that if one is bad, if you just wait a couple weeks, a new one will be starting.
I mean, yeah,
No?
literally.
There's this old adage that there is no point at any time in the world that the song "It's a Small World" by the Sherman Brothers isn't playing, thanks to the fact that there are so many Disney parks all over the world.
Mm.
It's sort of like there is no point at which there is not a drag race currently running.
Yeah. I mean, I actually think at this point we're pretty close to that being the actual case, because it really has been, Mexico into Australia, into Germany.
Into Brazil.
Yep. And
Wait, what is that about Alamand that I hear? What is that about the Guten Tag drag queens? What is that about them that you brought up? Where like there are a few things that literally can stroke the dick of my soul, like a drag queen who knows her Marvel bullshit. But when you add being a Disney dick guzzler, I don't even know what else to call a drag queen dressed as Angela wielding a keyblade.
And I do think the Angela might be a coincidence.
No.
I don't know.
Refusal.
I've not
Well, I
seen.
mean, and Angela is a drag queen. Let's be real.
Like a
Yeah. Yes.
dressage horse throwing you to the ground. Refusal.
I have not seen a single mention of that. But I have seen many mentions of the Keyblade. Anyway, we are, of course, talking about Pandora Knox's entrance look in the first episode of Drag Race Germany, which will be on our list now. Pandora Knox seems like a real competitor.
Okay, she seems like somebody who is not here to be a competitor. She seems like she's someone here to be a winner.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't speak German, but she even seems for German people. Like she's not fucking around. She is Annika. We're watching so much Voyager.
I know.
She
Annika
is
Hansen. There you go.
Angela Merkin is what she is.
Now there's a good drag queen.
Also,
one of very few AFAB queens to be on the show at all. So you know, pioneer.
one, I also don't. I don't understand why Norvina was here. No, just no. And two, Kevo, do you have any thoughts going into the finale of UK Drag Race Down Under season 3?
It's their criminals, so same
UK
difference.
penal colony drag race.
UK penal colony.
UK penal.
No, speaking of penal colony, Queen
I'll
from
show you a penal
UK
colony.
season 2 is gonna be in the finale, and that is
Yeah.
a penal colony I would visit any day. So Kevo, that finale. Oh, don't shake your head like Queen isn't a stunning example.
Oh, that's not why I shook my head. Kevo.
Oh, man,
No, he
okay.
was-
No, Kevo.
Talk to you. Yeah, no. I was also surprised, but I've been surprised by a lot this season. Definitely interested. I've got our 3 finalists here under the animal signs of the workroom. We've got Gabrielle Labucci as the camel, and we've got Isis is the dingo, and we have little Kiwi Floor here. And I don't know. Did we make our final calls of who we think is gonna take it? Are we doing that? Do we normally do that?
I guess we are now.
I'm stroking
It's
out.
gotta be Isis.
Yeah.
As somebody pointed out, Isis needs to elevate the finale in order for her not to win. I think she's. I won't say the production favorite. I think she's what seems like the obvious choice. My personal pick to win. I wouldn't be mad if Floor won. I'll get over it if Gabriella won. I'm not gonna be upset. I'm not gonna be one of those fans. But it's not the person I'm rooting for. I'm not actively rooting against. I think we're all saying Isis.
Isis seems like the clear person who will win. I love her fine. She's fine. would be really. I think it'd be great to floor one. I just think she has a really great personality. But I can see
However,
what.
that would mean for 3 seasons in a row, a New Zealander has won over somebody from Australia.
Yeah, somebody who's
giving it to a person from Jersey for a Miss New York pageant.
But yeah, I think Isis really does seem like she's got it in the bag.
Well,
there we go. There's our bet.
You know, it's always tough because like Hollywood Star was such a beautiful queen who had so much talent and so much to offer the world. And I really hope that she chooses to further engage with the WoW machine and be part of the Versus the World universe. Now, Jonah, it turns out you're not going to make it to our final 3 for this episode. You were part of our final 4, but much like Hollywood Star, I hope that you continue with our machine. And since you already offered to show everybody your penal colony, where can everybody find that online if they're looking?
You can find me at any social at Peak Jonah. I want to wish you guys safe sailing. Yahoo! It's the name of the treasure on the Grand Line. Set sail for One Piece.
Oh, are you gonna? Oh, so you're not here for the One Piece discussion? I just want to say that I've actually always really been into pirates. Like my desk is literally covered in Killian from Once Upon a Time stuff. Pirates are my thing. I'm a Tori Amos fan, so I either like pirates or I'm uncool. Those are the 2 settings. And so with that in mind, Jonah, you know, your wholehearted embrace of our love of One Piece was really a huge part of making that like a defining weekend that I'm going to remember fiction, like, you know, metafiction wise for a really long time. Now, we finished One Piece as a family, the 3 of us, and that was a really
Netflix live action show, not the 1074 episodes of the anime.
We are not
fiction.
We are not slightly above 1 megabytes worth of episodes.
50 actual uninterrupted 15 days of content if you wanted to do it.
Maybe in another 6 years. Over another 6 years.
One of the things that I love the most about getting to spend time with you, and not just, you know, you as my partner, but you as somebody whose interests I find really valuable, is your engagement with, specifically in this instance, what I'm going to reference, you know, Eastern influence content, things like One Piece, things like manga and anime as a whole. Your guiding influence has been a huge part of that for me, and I've been really excited to experience One Piece with you. You've been very clear that your One Piece knowledge is exclusive to a single arc, but you engaged with One Piece with us in a way that was a little bit more grand scale, or I guess grand line, as it were, One Piece. And you did show us the incredibly dorky rap, which is just like the I'm hero.
It's so unfortunate that kids these days do not get for kids anime dubs anymore.
Yeah, did you hear that?
We don't get them.
This Latin kid just told you all that it's unfortunate that you don't know what classic rap is. So,
wait, I also want to say before we lose you, there's a video that I watched only part of where Iñaki, who plays Juan Piece, goes and meets the creator of the series, and at the very beginning he introduces himself and says that he plays the one guy, Monkey D. Luffy, and so that really justifies this dumbass up here calling him Juan Piece. So the story of Juan Piece looking for the Grand Line.
No, they know what the Grand Line is.
It's, you know, it's silly because, like, yes, obviously,
can't get
as
there.
TK referenced, you play Marvel Snap a lot, and it's funny because you play Marvel Snap, but in my heart, you know, you're Yugi, and like it's you playing your Magic card game, and you're my little Yugi boy.
Oh, I'm Yugi and not Joey. Oh, thank God.
No, you're not anywhere dumb enough to be Joey. You're far too well intentioned. But
is there a question anywhere in this? Because it's been literally 5 minutes.
It requires the whole fucking setup. I'm Aaron Sorkin. So,
well, you're not walking.
I would be if we had a moving camera.
Oh my God, we should convert the show to walk and talk.
Teak, what's that beautiful moving camera device that I love that you love?
Christopher Walk and Talk.
You referenced it earlier, even.
Steadicam? Gimbal,
the
a
one that, like,
gimbal.
the gimbal. Okay, so until we have gimbals, Jonah, one of the things that's been really exciting for me is getting to experience a different understanding of things like Drag Race. My understanding of anime and manga came when I was like 16 and 17 years old, but yours came in those formative years. Yesterday, we talked about something that was really important to me, which is the media of 1993 and the way that influenced me. But honest to goodness, you're about a decade younger than me. So the media of 2001 was the media for you. One Piece is a part of that huge anime push that occurred in that 2001, 2003 Kids WB sort of era. And knowing that things like queens on international versions of Drag Race, as well as multiple queens on the American version of Drag Race, celebrate, comics, anime, manga, all of it. I think about you and I think about how you are the target audience for so much of this future. I would love to know what it means to you to get to talk about this. I think about who you were a year ago and you didn't get to talk about Drag Race on air. And now your Drag Race opinions are heard by over thousands of people every single week. And there is something to be said for the fact that you represent that proto fan, and understanding that is a huge part of what we do. How do you feel about Drag Race and One Piece and all of this media that you're about to sign off of for the week?
It's just always a very special honor that I even get to do a wonderful, amazing show like this with some wonderful, amazing, cool family, who I love, getting talked to about, who we would be saying all this anyway if it wasn't on camera. So you might as well find a way to spread it to the masses. But I view it as an honor because I know it's a gift that I have been given that I get to do, and I get to share my opinions because there's plenty of people who don't get to do this, who have the ability to do this kind of weekly show, getting to talk about some of their favorite interests, whether they're niche or not. And I view this as almost like a responsibility of I get to talk about how I want, but I got to phrase things in a way that's always constructive, loving, coming from a place of I would love to see you and see you in ways where we can see you soar. Maybe this just wasn't your episode. Maybe this just wasn't your time, but I know you can soar. And I never want to look at things as the pessimistic. I always want to try to keep it that pragmatic optimism of like, I really understand how the world works, but I can hope and dream that it's all this positive and wonderful wish fulfillment of everything. Speaking of wish fulfillment, great job to everybody on One Piece. It was a really, not even just a special show to watch of like, oh, I get to see like what this is, cut down to the tent poles. But getting to share it with you guys, with everybody here, was just, beautiful and special. And I don't know if I've seen much fanfare talking about it because I haven't really looked for it because I try to keep away from a lot of certain things of like, oh, if I want to watch the anime, I don't want to spoil myself because I have not been spoiled for anything with One Piece. One of the best set designs, everything looked gorgeous. I was very blown away of oh, everything looks, all the props to the art department for that and the costume design team. Everybody looked amazing and all the sets looked really cool.
A lot of on location shoots, which very much appreciated. And Jonah, I never got to ask you, but how do you like Sanji?
Oh, it was really,
yeah, boy.
That's my boy. So Sanjay. So I will name my three favorite, for people who are bigger One Piece fans. I will name my three favorite Straw Hat Pirate members. Number 1 is Sanji. Number 2 is Nico Robin, and number 3 is Frankie. So we're gonna get to them.
Yep.
We may get to Nico if they ever do a season 2, but
I think still.
It'll be a very long time before we get to her.
They've already written season 2 in its entirety and are just waiting for the second to film it. What a sexy statement.
But this characterization of Sanji was really spectacular and amazing, and I was kind of just blown away of oh. And this goes to most of the people who were a part of the show and part of this cast, but really the actors for Nami, Zoro, and Sanji really, in a way, put their all into it. It's one of those things where you can tell they really enjoy the source material enough to bring it to life, and it's one of those things of when people go hard in Muppet movies, it really makes me happy.
Yeah, take it seriously, really, yeah.
And so it's one of those things where it's like, oh, also super respect to him having to like dedicate like 10 hours a day to training with just his legs, because he does all his own stunts, and that is super incredible and impressive and amazing. So props to you, Mama. I really enjoyed your performance as Sanji, and thank you for bringing him.
Props to your mama.
The last thing I'll say before we let you go, we go to commercial and we talk about it fuller in the segment after our short break. There's a video that I sent to Nico that I'll make sure to pass along to you boys. Or maybe I sent it to everyone. I can never remember. But it's the entire cast reacting to the trailer, seeing it together for the first time. It's so cool. Everyone, especially Nami, especially Luffy, their reactions, he cries, and the entire cast falls around him going, Iñaki! And he like thanks them for being his friends. And Sanji thanks him for being his friend. And like it's the sweetest thing. And that always helps so much when the cast has that sort of relationship. I really hope this is something for Netflix. It's certainly something for us.
Well, Netflix called it a huge success and said that it is definitely within the realm of their expectations of the performance of the franchise, and is a pretty good sign of more to come. And speaking of more to come, oh wait, Jonah has more to say.
Okay, one last thing, especially with the advent of the live action Death Note and the live action, I almost said My Hero Academia. No, Full Metal Alchemist.
No, My Hero Macadamia.
My Hero Macadamia. My Hero Macadamia, not with white chocolate.
You're not.
It was
Almond.
Really poor reception. So to see that there's much better reception for this, I think goes into show, if you really know the source material and you show that love, it's going to produce success. It's going to be good.
Hashtag renew Sandman. So
finish. It's renewed, but it's never a guarantee, even if they film it. So finish it. It needs to be the new hashtag.
Finish him. So until we come back to finish this, Jojo, it has been such a pleasure getting to share the things you love that defined you both as a child and as an adult. And it is really exciting to get to share that perspective with you. Thank you so much for being part of our show. And we can't wait to have you on next time. As always, where can everybody find you on the interwebs?
You can find me at any social at Peak Jonah. That's Peak.
Terrific. All right. Get rid of him. Bye.
Bye.
All right. But the rest of us, we're going to go to commercial and have a good, sexy time with that. And then we're going to come right back and we're going to talk about a few other things. And they're going to roll this show out now. You
Why'd
know,
you guys stop dancing?
No.
because it went to the other music, right?
Yeah, fair.
It is such a pleasure for me to get to encourage JoJo and, Kevo and TK's, but JoJo's not here, so it's hard to talk about him. But it's always so exciting to get to encourage JoJo's interests, his loves, his passions, because I wish that when I was 26 and loved stuff that nobody had ever heard of, I had a place to talk about it. Instead, I made one, right? And that's why we came up with X's for Podcast as a team. We came up with HTML as a team, and now we fused them together. I'm just really excited about the future of our show because it gives us room to talk about all of the things that matter to us. There's no reason that people who love Nailed It and Project Runway and Ahsoka and One Piece can't talk about all of it. We kind of kicked things off a little bit with a little bit of One Piece talk. I genuinely thought that was a perfect season. I'm a Pirates boy. I love Monkey because he is Luffy is a great lead in a world of shitty leads, in a world of, Heisenbergs. Be Luffy, right? Be a better lead in an era of faulty male white leads. Not that Luffy is necessarily white, but everyone I've ever seen cosplay him is. So, what can I say? White guys just love the idea that they can stretch anything. So
There is a very popular creator, black creator, who
Awesome.
cosplays as Monkey, and unfortunately dealt with some serious racism from it.
fucked up.
Yeah, I mean, it does happen. It happens more than you would think.
I'm Monkey and I'm Luffy. I'm Luffy and I love to eat, so I had to get potato chips.
Oh, for God's sake.
Oh, for God's sakes. I just really love potato chips. So anyway, we finished One Piece, and the thing that I loved the most about One Piece is that this is 5 people who are 5 different people.
Yeah.
That is such a hard thing to sell in the modern age, where so many characters are given the sort of one voice is the comedian writer voice. This was 5 tropes, admittedly, but there were 5 tropes that defined themselves really concisely. I never wondered where the humor of Luffy began and ended in comparison to, say, Sanji or Zoro. There was something really uniquely defined about each character's role and their screen time. For instance, I knew that Usopp, outside of an Usopp episode, was going to get the least amount of screen time as defined by his role within the hero's journey. That's a really important understanding as somebody looking to gauge the quality of the dynamic of the team. A team dynamic is something you read X-Men for. When you read Daredevil, you read it for a solo hero, but his cast of characters. This then meant that I was reading this like an X-Men, and I wanted to understand how these characters came together. An understanding and structural identity for each character within their role really helped me as a new audience member to assimilate within the One Piece world and accept these characters for who they were kind of flawlessly. I felt like within 8 episodes, I knew each one of these characters like I would know them after 3 seasons of a 22 episode ABC show from a decade ago. And I was really excited to spend this 8 hours falling in love with these characters that was more like 6.5, though I wish it were longer.
I think too, while there are some tropes involved in the characterization, it's surprising how not tropey they are. Nami is not a femme fatale, although she is playing an infiltrator role. She is gorgeous, obviously, but she's a little bit of a tomboy.
I thought she was Bucky Barnes. I thought she was the sleeper agent who unsettles the quality of the unique group's harmony later on in the narrative.
I'm another, very good descriptor, but also one that we don't typically apply to a female character, because then again, it would be femme fatale. She would be a sleep with you agent. Zoro is a stoic swordsman who seeks to be the best, but that in and of itself is like pretty simple, but the reason why he wants to be the best and the legacy from which he comes, I think puts it, that he had that emotional spark to his journey, where typically a character like this, although I will say a little bit fridging, so we don't love that, but that the journey would start from such an emotional place, and that he would so quickly surrender to loving Luffy and wanting to be part of the Straw Hat Pirates. So anyway, I mean, there's something about every single one that doesn't necessarily upend a trope, but certainly keeps it from feeling really stale. And I really, that's one of the things I most appreciate about the show overall, but something about the way each of the actors portrays their character really comes across to me.
And I am really excited to learn more about the source material, really learn more about the original iterations of the characters, see how they compare and contrast, and sorry, it's just so overwhelming thinking about how many episodes there are and how many arcs, and just even thinking about what's their potential plan going to be. The thing we keep seeing headlines of is that they've already written season 2, even though they haven't been picked up. Except for the physical work of doing it, it's not like that's hard when you have this source material to work from. How many episodes did someone say that this season condensed of the original anime?
48 to 55.
That's bananas. And I think there's ways you can, justify doing that. It's an adaptation. It's not meant to be necessarily a one-for-one. You take what you've learned in the 20 plus years since that originally happened, and you take what you can do in live action versus what you're able to do in an anime.
That would still be 20 seasons going at that, more than 20 seasons going at that pace to get us to the finale.
And the manga and the anime exist. You don't need to do the exact one-for-one of what those things were.
Right. That's the thing I'm really interested in. They're obviously not going to do 20 seasons. So how will they start to editorialize to get us to, I think if they could do 10 and tell the whole story, tell their whole story, I think that would be so cool. Netflix doesn't really get to 10 seasons of stuff like this.
Netflix can't count to 11 without getting naked, so I wouldn't get too excited.
There you go.
But I would love if this is something that could achieve the levels of the Marvel Netflix universe, which did get to over 100, and maybe there's ways that we can do it. I feel like Netflix can see that The Witcher is falling apart around it, and I think the fact that the composers for this series literally are the people from The Witcher says a lot. There's
Don't
the
worry,
regular,
we got work for you guys.
There's the regular soundtrack album, and then there is a shorter Barati remix album that's I think just the numbers that are in that episode.
Wow.
There's the My Sails Are Set single featuring Aurora. Aurora. Like, this is
Aurora,
not
mama. Aurora.
Netflix. This is not nothing for sure.
Yeah.
And the way that they incorporated the themes from the original series, so cute, and they did it in such cool ways. Yeah, I really hope that Netflix sees that they have something cool on their hands.
And speaking of people who understand what they're doing with a classic bit of animation and doing something with it, I am gobstopped and globsmacked. I've just made up a new term. It is the scrumtrelescent of its day, that we are in an era where One Piece, this beautiful adaptation of an incredible anime, exists alongside Ahsoka, the continuation of a spectacular animated cartoon series that reflects on the quality of a live action universe that, well, look, I know that the idea of what Star Wars is started before the American popularization of manga and anime, But by 1995 and the preliminary work on Phantom Menace, there was no way to escape the thrall of anime, manga, and more as Eastern influences began to overtake the very classic serialized Hollywood 1940s notions that had initially predominated so much of Star Wars. Of course, George Lucas had always had a lot of Eastern inspirations, but things like One Piece have had a direct influence on works like Ahsoka, and it's really beautiful to see that synergy as these two works thrive together as popular streaming shows on TV at the same time, or on your phone at the same time. This episode of Ahsoka fucked me over 10 times. I have been blown away by episodes 3 and 4 of Ahsoka. What spectacular attention to crafting narrative experiences that you sit at your TV and don't want to pause. So how do you guys feel about Ahsoka? We had a crazy episode that ended with a certain gentleman saying the name Snips.
Yeah, that was so cute. I didn't know if Teak wanted to go first on this one.
I was not set at starting, so please go for it.
Oh, sure, by all means. We had started a Star Wars Clone Wars journey a very long time ago, way back before any sort of pandemic ravaged our society. And gosh, even the pandemic was not enough to drive us to continue going all the way through Clone Wars.
Oh, man.
Power to everyone who thinks that it is the greatest Star Wars of all time, because that's one of the great things about franchises is that there should be something for everyone. Everyone should feel like something is their thing, and there's a lot of great stuff from it. We might go back one day. But we found it a little bit too difficult, and so we went into Ahsoka fairly blind, apart from a distinct impression that we got of her early journey as a Padawan. So we liked the character already, and anyone who doesn't know her from the Clone Wars or Rebels, by now, if they're watching the live actions, they know her from other projects like Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. They know Rosario Dawson from such blockbuster hits as Josie and the Pussycats and Rent. But, we weren't really sure what to expect. It's definitely kept our attention so far.
Riveting.
Shoot, I need to get a picture of that last shot of Master Anakin. Gosh, they just does he look younger again?
I think they put the effect on him.
They keep doing that, don't they?
Yeah, if I ran that effect on me while I'm on air here, I would wind up looking like a fetus.
We definitely
they are really starting to unage people a little too far for my taste.
Well, it's in the wrong order though, because he looks younger here than he did in the flashback in Obi-Wan now, because they got the technology better having worked with him more. But he should probably be older.
I mean, what you could do if you wanted, which they should, is say that part of your Force ghost is how the other person saw you. So because Ahsoka's Anakin was younger, when she interacts with the Force ghost, she sees a younger one. I don't know if it's vanity for Hayden Christensen or like an attempt to...
You mean Heyday Christensen with how they made him look?
Yeah.
Well, and people are... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think his heyday might be coming up now.
And people are already overanalyzing everything about this screen cap and being like, which lightsaber is he holding there?
Yep. Wondering what's going on with the Vader cue at the end.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's really tough for me as a guy who never wanted to be a teacher, who wound up being a teacher by accident. I had some crazy ideas about educational reform that it turns out nobody really wants you to fucking have if you've never been in a classroom. And that was like really important to me, because I learned that you don't just get to come in and set the rules on education until you've been in there. And that's kind of like saying, Anakin, you don't get to tell everybody what a Jedi is until you've taught a few Jedi who they might choose to be. But you have to understand how to give people free choice. Anakin is not a character I think should be a teacher. Anakin's like a fucked up guy. And we all kind of joke that we are messed up in the head. No, none of us are Anakins. None of us slaughtered hundreds of younglings that we had recently been the teacher of. And if you are, please turn this video off. We're not looking for your subscriber numbers. And so, if you are somebody who has seen the Anakin journey, this moment where somebody gives him that love, that forgiveness, that understanding in the afterlife, that's the nature of understanding forgiveness culture. Nobody's saying forgive Anakin his horrible actions in life, right? We're saying acknowledge that in a magical mystery in-between place, you can see somebody as their idealized self. And that's the nature of Star Wars' understanding of forgiveness. Star Wars' understanding of forgiveness exists within the idea that who you are is not defined by the actions you take. The actions you take are defined by the course of reality. But who you are is a character. It's sort of the Kyber crystal inside your lightsaber. And your lightsaber can be used for evil. But your Kyber crystal is who you are. This representation of Anakin represents so much to me about the understanding of people who have suffered from mental illness, perhaps even at the behest and the command of Star Wars fans, and just getting to see Hayden Christensen represent an idealized version of self really meant to me forgiveness for guys like Hayden and Jake Lloyd, who were treated poorly by fandom regardless of any other outside factors.
Go ahead.
No, please.
Something I love about your Kyber crystal analogy is there's a lot of stuff about when you turn Sith, the reason that your lightsaber is red is the evil corrupting the Kyber crystal and it not being able to properly process that energy.
It's not
So
a
I
different
really
crystal.
think-
It's like it changes.
No, you have to don't quote me
Wow.
on this, but something along the lines of probably psychically torture a Kyber crystal to make it work with the Sith.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it's wild. So that's very much along the lines of what happens to you when you do fall to the dark side, and what we've talked about in the show before, where it almost is a very distinct personality separate from yourself when that happens to you.
That's an amazing addition to what I thought was a fine perspective, but that additional part, that extra level, we talk a lot about the quality of the experience of being somebody who suffers from mental illness, but and I'm not here to give, the DARE program any credence because I'm pretty sure any DARE advisor I ever had was on heroin, but one of the hallmarks of the DARE program, drug abuse resistance education, as it existed in the 90s in the United States, was once a pickle is made a pickle, once a cucumber has changed, it can never be unpickled again. You can have an incredible life as a pickle, but you can never go back to being a cucumber, which is clumsy as shit. But if you want to treat Anakin's fall to the dark side like somebody losing their battle to addiction, you can see that somebody like Ahsoka, who we are putting up on a pedestal, represents an understanding of forgiveness and the room for tolerance for recognizing that people can have weaknesses outside of physical incapacity. We often think of disability as things like sitting in a wheelchair, but disability includes things like addiction, and the room for forgiveness for Anakin is defining of a generation who has sought to give better attention to mental illness.
I was going to say he comes off much more like a sponsor than a teacher.
Great perspective. Thank you for adding that.
And all of this, we're talking a lot about lore and in-universe stuff, but then this is all really bundled up with the real world situation with these characters and actors when we ended the prequel trilogy, everybody hated Hayden Christensen, which they should not have done, but
Hated Christensen.
hated him. Hated Christensen, exactly. We're happy he burned in that lava on Mustafar and set this character aside. And we had Darth Vader, who was cool, and screw Anakin Skywalker, and we never want to talk about that again. And time passed, 20 years passed, we all grew up. Some of us matured, and we all got really horny for nostalgia, which was just kind of the perfect storm of people saying, like, maybe we were wrong about Hayden Christensen and Anakin Skywalker, which leads us to using this in-universe mechanic of a Force ghost to allow this character that we love to be able to come back. And I think that's really cool.
In-universe mechanic, great term, thank you.
But now we're in this really interesting zone where so much stuff is like that. I think if I could really shake Rian Johnson for anything, it's killing Luke, because, I love Mark Hamill, the actor. I get having Luke in the mix is difficult, but man, do I love Mark Hamill, and man, did I not think
Just give him a droid. He's the best voice actor of his generation. Just give him a fucking droid already.
Which I do think is entirely feasible, and maybe he doesn't want to do it, but knowing that that's a thing, that loving Mark Hamill is a thing for the audience. When we look at a Rey movie, one of the first things I think is, I imagine we have not seen the last of Luke Skywalker's Force ghost.
I hope
with
not,
Rey.
yeah.
Yes, with Rey.
With Rey.
With Rey. And similarly, I think people might soften to Ben Solo by the time of the Rey movie, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that in the mix. There's Nico, you bring up Mark Hamill voicing a droid. Droids are having a big heyday, and droids in universe allow us to bring actors in. So there's just so much stuff with Star Wars where I not only do I look at what's happening in universe, where are we in the timeline, what do people need, what's Ahsoka driving towards, but also, where are we as a culture? We love Hayden Christensen. Ahsoka needs a mentor. She lost her mentor. This is her mentor. We have Force ghosts. So, I just think it's very interesting to be in a place where both, in-universe mechanics and the mechanics of Hollywood come into play to create these moments that I think are better than the sum of their parts when done with a lot of good intention and looking to joy and art and beauty, and are just soulless and horrible when it's, oh, that's the new hot girl, make her a slutty Force ghost because that's, what we need to do.
It makes me think about the fact that you can either choose to think of sunrise as a beautiful experience full of color or the death of night. You have two choices. I don't know why you would choose to think of it as something less than beautiful. And Ahsoka for me represents that beauty of growth that like you can only see this as a positive thing. I never thought I'd like a show more than Obi-Wan, even though I think Mandalorian is one of the greatest achievements in Disney television history. And I am putting that up there with Webigail saying, "You can talk," like Disney television achievements. Mandalorian is far and away the live action adaptation of Lone Wolf and Cub, which I've read the first 70 volumes of. I worked at a comic shop. They were all just sitting on the shelf. But God, Ahsoka creates such a relevant context. If Mandalorian provides a dynasty-level interpretation of soap opera, then I guess the only thing you could say is that Ahsoka is the relevant furthering of the medium in Desperate Housewives. Ahsoka asks me what I think is important about Star Wars and tells me, even if I think those things are important, there's other things that will tie into them. That's, I think, what makes Ahsoka so special. The things that Ahsoka puts front and center, whether they're the things that are important about the Star Wars universe to you or not, are adjacent to the things you love about the Star Wars universe. She is an exciting character who everyone you love in Star Wars touches in one way or another. Her journey is an exciting journey. Do you love dual lightsabers? Even if you don't need them connected, she's got dual lightsabers. Do you love unique lightsaber colors? Hers are white. Do you love aliens, but you still need someone looking human? Ahsoka's got you covered. She runs so uniquely close to so many beautiful things about the Star Wars universe. I can't turn this show off. I can't stop wanting to know more about her. And that is a unique gift that is both given by Dave Filoni's brilliant character and Rosario Dawson's tour de force performance for an actress that I often think is given a B+ when she is a C+. She is really providing the A that I was hoping for in this show.
And I'll also say that Star Wars has been doing a really great job of giving us a lot of solo focus pieces with Andor, with Obi-Wan, with Ahsoka.
Excellent perspective. Thank
Not
you.
with The Mandalorian, honestly. The Mandalorian is
It's a group shot. Yeah.
Is an ensemble piece. And kind of
It's all about Mandalore.
Right. Kind of so was Book of Boba Fett. A little more dialed into Boba, but it's really about the family that he builds on Tatooine.
It's at least a duo piece. So I
Yeah.
think your perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you don't like Ahsoka, that's okay. You probably are gonna like Andor. You have to like Obi-Wan. Come on. But I think doing these tighter focus personal pieces to reveal the world to us actually makes a lot of sense, because what is going on in the world is going to be true no matter what. The perspective might change a little bit for you in terms of how you feel and interpret it. And if you don't like Rosario Dawson, if you don't like Ahsoka, that's fine. There's another character in another show for you to connect to.
Ray Stevenson. Oh my God.
Oh, I mean, my point being, like, if you don't like Ahsoka, don't watch this. Ray Stevenson's phenomenal. I'm waiting.
The Austin Wolf physically of the Star Wars universe. My God, the man is literally Dirk Kaber. Oh
Yeah.
my
Remember
God.
Dirk Kaber? Yeah.
It is one of those things where, like, I did not know I needed this character, but my goodness, does he really represent something that Ahsoka is the absolute fucking opposite of? And so if Ahsoka does nothing for you, immediately the other lead is exactly for you. I did not mean to jump in. I've been like the talky-overest person. It's just like I was saying to Kevo, I come alive when this show is on. Like when we hit start recording, I just feel like a happier, safer person. And it brings out feelings I didn't even know I had. So it's always a special opportunity for me to share with the two men that I love the most. And when Jonah's on here, hey, that's 3 on my 4. So can't complain.
We're just gonna put you in a shock collar.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's good that Ahsoka's not for everybody. I think make more of these character-driven Star Wars shows that aren't for everybody, and find other ways to do the universally beloved piece. Because the fact of the matter is, we saw with the sequel trilogy, it just is too... it gets too close to lowest common denominator. We live in a world where the people who control the money do not want to scare anyone off. So bold choices are discouraged, and you want as many people as possible to be good with what's at the theater. So no, we're not taking any risks. And that's just how the movies and the bigger pieces are going to be. These are our accessories to that, and they can do a lot for us individually.
All I want to do is write the ongoing comic about Leia, who is a young woman who looks close enough to Leia that she serves as Leia's stand-in on planets that don't know what Leia looks like. And the voiceover is all beautiful work by Carrie Fisher's incredible daughter. And I just want to write stories that are tangential to what's important in Star Wars.
And I think that's such a great example, because what you just described is in universe a thing we know exists, which are stand-ins. We had them for Padme. And
Yeah, I just want to write an
somebody,
entire series called Stand-ins. That's all I want to
yeah,
write.
and somebody who is related to Carrie Fisher, in, like, you know, in the real world, allowing us to tie the legacy together. That's exactly what I was talking about earlier, and what Star Wars is doing in a way that's so like important, because it is such a property where legacy is such a huge part of it.
I completely agree. And you know, my journey back to Star Wars was hard because I actually, you know, I've been talking about this a lot with Kevo, and like, you know, it's my adult 37-year-old therapy. I was really bullied for being a huge Star Trek fan, like my whole life. Like I went as multiple Star Trek characters for Halloween for multiple years in a row, and very few of my friends were very kind about it. And so I went to Star Wars because Star Wars was socially acceptable, and my very cool friend Chris was into Star Wars. So if Chris said Star Wars was cool, Star Wars was cool. He had the Vader mosaic that was the Anakin poster that formed the shadow of Vader in his bedroom for like 20 years. And I thought that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. You know, Kevo, you helped me to understand that Star Wars wasn't my Star Trek fill-in. It wasn't the thing that I loved because Star Trek was uncool. You helped me to understand that I loved these two things beautifully and differently. Your understanding of Star Wars has taken my Star Wars love from a 16-pack of Crayolas to that 128-pack with the built-in sharpener in the back. And it has been exciting to be your Star Wars partner. Where are you feeling halfway through Ahsoka?
You know, I will feel safer determining that, I think, after this week's broadcast, because really, truly, this threw me through a giant loop because I was not expecting them to actually do the World Between Worlds when they had all of this early promotional stuff with her and all of this stuff. I and a lot of other people sort of were like speculating, is that what it is? And then eventually we get into the series and we find out, oh, it's actually this star chart uh, monolith thing. So that's all it is. And then, surprise, no, at the end of this week's episode, there is Anakin. We were expecting some sort of appearance, but didn't know if it would just be Vision or a Force Ghost or what. And so this was a really, really, really surprising swing. It could ultimately not really pan out to anything major and just be a cute moment between these characters, or it could be something big. That's the thing about this universe and the things that these writers do sometimes, where I'm never really sure if they want to play it safe or if they want to use the time travel dimension to save someone from imminent death. You don't know. And, you know, like TK was saying, you know, Hayden is having a moment. A lot of the stuff from the early 2000s is having a moment. So I don't really know what that means for the future of this franchise. I feel like it's in a huge rebuilding era. They say they're building up to a point of a major motion picture that is going to tie in a lot of threads from Ahsoka and Mando and a lot of different stuff. But
Yeah, okay. And the fourth Dark Tower book that Stephen King added as the eighth book didn't at all disrupt canon at all. No, Wolves of Kala is perfect.
well, and on top of everything else, just yeah, you say you're gonna make this, but then Carrie Fisher dies and Trevorrow drops out, and you have no idea what's gonna happen for the last movie. On
And what
top of all
Rand
of
Johnson
that,
is doing changes 3 times.
on top of all of that, what we have right now with the strike, we have no idea how that is going to impact the landscape of film release for years.
Years, man.
So
It's definitely
At
years.
least. If not
does
like
that
a decade plus.
we're also seeing streaming is changing so much of media release, so maybe we do start seeing less theatrical Star Wars stuff anyway. I don't know. We have I saw an image of it. I didn't grab it while I was grabbing this. But there's a fan event coming up this week where they're doing limited theatrical showings of this week's episode on Tuesday night.
Oh, we're on the wait list for 7 cities.
Yeah,
You're gonna drive
so
up 3 hours. We're ready.
Yeah, and that really says something to me that they want this next one. There's going to also on Friday be a special release that chronicles the relationship between Anakin and Ahsoka. So they're really doing. They're at least putting in some amount of effort. They're trying to make this cool. They're trying to make this a thing. They're trying to do something big with this theatrical limited release. Maybe they'll do one for the finale too. Who knows? But yeah. I'm this is definitely a show that has me on the edge of wanting to see the new episode every single week. Like, I think setting it to a late evening release as well was God damn it, we can't just watch it Tuesday morning. We can't.
What a fucking romantic, sexy thing. Tuesday at 9 p.m. That's getting ice cream on the boardwalk. God damn, that's Zeppeli's at midnight.
We're a little too sleepy for that on Tuesday nights sometimes, and that's our fault. That's not Disney's fault. If we were really that excited, we could watch it. And maybe this Tuesday we definitely will. Who knows? Who knows?
Who knows? Indeed. TK, I kind of found out that you were a Star Wars fan by default. In the course of falling in love with you and getting to become your amazing partner. That's right. I said amazing partner. No, you're the amazing
Hold on,
partner.
let me get the confetti for you. Congratulations. You're amazing. Sorry, go ahead.
Work fan favorite.
In the course of getting to be your fan favorite, I got to discover a lot of things about the way you love fiction and the way you love the universe, and we never really talked about Star Wars. Instead, I could see the things that you prioritized and prided about fiction in the Star Wars universe. So it wasn't a question for me that when we were going to discuss Obi-Wan on the show, I knew you were watching some part of Star Wars enough that you could at least catch up on Obi-Wan, or perhaps you'd been watching. And so when it came time to discuss Ahsoka, it was such a clear no-brainer that you would be celebrating this identity of female fandom in fiction in the form of Star Wars giving an original show to a character that had not just risen up through the realm of Star Wars, but rather had started animated. Another thing I know you think is such a valuable part of the fictional landscape. I am so excited to talk about Ahsoka with you as somebody who knows that even if Ahsoka isn't hitting the A+ for you every week, it is regularly, if not always, hitting for me. It is representing the things you want to see realized, and getting to be part of that with you is such an exciting moment for me as your partner and somebody who loves to see you be excited. What is it like seeing what is maybe not the show you're looking for at all times, but something eager to hit the heights you're looking for from fiction?
The great thing about Star Wars for me is I'm actually not really looking for anything any of the time. So
did you hear that? There's nothing you can do that will impress him, Star Wars.
You're done. You can pack it in. You're not going to win. No, you're not going to lose. There's not really a lot. At most, I might be like, oh, I wasn't super excited about this, which... Andor might fall into that category the most, but there has not been a single Star Wars Disney Plus property that I have regretted turning on, or have I said, this is garbage, I don't want it.
Can I just add Disney YouTube Star Wars content?
Yeah.
The unbelievable free oeuvre of Star Wars YouTube content
100%.
is so fucking breathtaking.
Yep.
Star Wars Kids, the show that celebrates the voice actor that plays Jar Jar Binks getting to host Legends of the Hidden Temple for Young Jedi. There's an unbelievable plethora, and I didn't mean to cut you off. I only meant to celebrate your perspective.
I'm glad you did, because you're right. It is not just Disney Plus. Star Wars is doing what Star Wars in every way is doing really what I wish Marvel would do.
Thank you. God, it's so embarrassing. They have the same parent.
Yeah, and
It's like all the ways my sister is a better employee than me. Ugh, God, we have the same parents. What did I do wrong?
You know, I've talked before, though, there's more and less responsibility that Star Wars has for the fact that all of the spin-off material was deemed legends, and so they're building a lot from the ground up in a way where the MCU is adapting and they're trying to do too much. They really just need to, like, pace themselves a little bit more.
It must be easy when you have Thrawn in prose and Thrawn in comics and Thrawn in video games.
Pros again,
Thrawn
and in animated.
And so you have
Yup.
7 different ways to see Thrawn. So when we see Thrawn in this incredible expanded Star Wars universe, we're going to be breathtaken by the idea of these brilliant writers who have seen several brilliant writers work before them. The Marvel Universe, while it has brilliant writers galore, really only has a medium. What am I going to do with a medium? I don't even have a media.
Well, and then it has like, what, 50, 60 years for some of these characters and dozens of different writers who've done dozens of different versions. And how do you pick which version of which character? And then how many times in the MCU has it turned out, well, no, the version of Loki that everyone fell the most in love with is not really that recognizable from the comics. And that guy's going to get his own fucking TV show anyway.
Meanwhile,
what do they do?
Cudmore didn't play gay Colossus.
What do they do?
But every once in a while they'll throw up 6 episodes of a Squirrel Girl radio show and then never do another fictional podcast again for 2 years. They really won't even do YouTube shorts, but there's no reason they couldn't. Every once in a while they'll do like a random, like everybody's been fiending over an animatic of Ghost Rider versus Deadpool as an advertisement for Snap. It's phenomenal animation. It's so fun, and it's like a not even 30-second spot, but the reaction to it has just been out of this world. And that's what
I just want to say, the only thing that I keep being ready to do, and I haven't told you that there's a document ready to go the day you say you're ready.
Yeah.
But if ever we're not going to do a Wednesday or Thursday broadcast, and that's usually the day we do comics, depending on when we get to the LCS, I have an MCOC episode ready, and that's, of course, Marvel's Contest of Champions.
Yeah.
Did you realize that more characters have been incorporated for Marvel's Contest of Champions into different forms of canon? Of course, that's the different multiple published forms of the comic universe than any other video game at this point. And that's with Future Fight having 3 characters. Marvel Contest of Champions has like 9.
That doesn't really surprise me, although we don't see enough of them.
Did you know that the first ever appearance of Venom Pool is Contest of Champions?
That doesn't surprise
Venom
me.
Pool.
Yeah. There are ways, Contest of Champions is a great example of a place that Marvel expanded, committed, and is sort of running on its own rails. I know it's not crazy popular, but it is a very good game. Its audience loves it, and it looks good. It has cool development of character and stuff like that, and that's doing great. Give me a series of YouTube shorts with that stuff. Give me a planned series of audio stories like that. Star Wars is doing all these things. It's really fun to watch. That's back to the original question. It's fun to be a part of. My expectations are not low. My investment in it changed. It would be way too long a conversation to figure out how and why that happened. It just changed. It's not bad. It took a little bit of a hit with figuring out the sequel trilogy and the last one. I took a little bit of a hit there, but what I came back to it feeling is that it's a universe that I love. There's so much great stuff happening. And then they started doing all these shows, and the only thing I thought is I hope they're good. And then they have been, and that's really been fantastic. So for me, Ahsoka is just kind of the cherry on top of a Sunday I have absolutely enjoyed. I'm very happy it's a good show. I think they're innovating fictional concepts for the Star Wars universe. They are really doing a great justice to a lot of these wonderful actors. the creative direction, art direction, music are all right. They're just so on point and correct. And that's really fun to see. It's really fun to experience. If I don't particularly like, if I'm not foaming at the mouth over the story, I certainly am for the music. I certainly am for the voice acting and writing of Hu Yang specifically. There's so many things where I'm like, that element is so good that even if I'm not like through the moon about Sabine's journey as a Padawan, watching Sabine's journey as a Padawan interact with a sassy architect, lightsaber creator droid who it turns out knows kung fu,
Right.
like, come on, that's great. That's a phenomenal thing. So it really is fun to watch, and I do think Dave Filoni is really going under the radar right now in the broader production sphere as maybe somebody who I'm wanting to emulate and study a little bit more right now than like Kevin Feige.
He's just not as sexy as somebody like, per se, like, I'm going to say two names that absolutely don't make any sense together, but Ron D. Moore and Norman Lear. He's just not as sexy as like the gods of television, because what he's best known for is animated sci-fi. But like, when you think about people who have influenced people along the lines of a George R.R. Martin, you're talking about Dave Filoni's.
Yeah. Yep. He's not as sexy on the printed page in Variety magazine, but I think if you
Excellent way to say it. Thank you for enhancing
because I think
point.
I think to you and I, as people who want to create and make amazing fictional worlds with decades of legacy, he is like actually the guy in this moment. Like, we're seeing him show us his cards, and each one I'm just like, okay, I got to figure out how to do that. I got to follow that. I got to like look all this stuff up because this is the guy that's doing it.
It's like Sanderson levels of like multi-legged fiction.
But I understand that people are going to be like, oh, I don't know. It's like some Star Wars dude and he made an animated show. Okay, whatever.
Oh, Genndy Tartakovsky?
We need to watch his new show too. Thank you for reminding me. I'm putting it on the list. All right, Kevo, it's your turn.
He has a new show?
Yes, I'm going to get to it in a second.
Oh. What's my turn?
You say things, because I just monologued for like 5 minutes.
You got to tell us, how are we going to take this from Ahsoka to Mariner?
I don't know. I don't have anything. God damn.
All right. Well, then I think
from Star Wars to Star Trek.
Point, I had something at one point, then it went off in 5 other directions. So I don't know.
The main thing I want to say is that, like, Clone Wars gave an animated voice, which is a legitimate voice. If you don't think that animation is poignant, is powerful, then I guess you didn't live through 1992's Oscar-nominated Beauty and the Beast. It was the first ever movie to be nominated for Film of the Year that had been, or Best Picture, sorry, that had been animated. And if you don't think that animation has power, you've never understood the hold that Studio Ghibli has on millions of fans around the world. Lower Decks and Clone Wars represent that sort of effect on the quality of, on the quality of fandom all over the world. And that's always such an important thing to consider. Kevo, I wrote Lower Decks off. I wrote Lower Decks off and I wrote Discovery off. But Kevo, it was you who convinced me to give both of these shows not just another try, but the accepted shake. Now, admittedly, Nathan, who had been on this show for absolutely 3 or 4 years, what a great guy, what a great voice, what an incredible perspective on not just the Marvel Universe, but Star Trek, had been like, give Discovery another chance. But, my blue-eyed king said, let's watch everything. So we did. And Kevo, you are the reason that I gave Lower Decks a fair shot. And now Lower Decks is my number 2 Star Trek of all time. It is only number 2 behind the breathtaking brilliance that is Strange New Worlds. Kevo, we got to watch 2 Lower Decks brand new episodes together. How did you feel about the season premiere of what is probably the most exciting animated entry in any fandom I've had in my lifetime?
And this is going to be pretty wild because it's weekly. We got a double drop premiere, but we're going to have to this is not a format show that normally in this day and age is a weekly drop. I guess Rick and Morty, but Solar Opposites, which was the Mike McMahon show that
Even Nailed It was a drop. So it's everything is drops. Great perspective.
the show that I knew this creator from, Solar Opposites, was a full drop every time. And it was really seeing his work on that and kind of getting the idea that it was probably going to be a similar style, that I was like, no, I think you can trust this guy. He seems to have a real affection for science fiction and for the concept. Obviously Solar Opposites is going to do some edgier things, as it were.
TVMA ear things.
Whereas Star Trek Lower Decks really stays so true to the heart of what Star Trek is, to the point where, yeah, you're really right. It's one of the best probable Treks, I think, specifically because of all the corners of the universe that it can touch by being animated, which gives it such an advantage. But whatever, I'll take it. It's how we're able to get an episode like this Voyager premiere. Teak, I know that Voy is your ship. So how did you feel? I was so excited when I saw the news and was able to say that is the direction this premiere was going. How did it feel to see the old girl?
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
As a man who gets to be proud to be your man, I was like, I messaged you 10 times watching this, dude. I was so excited.
It was pretty fucking cool, I gotta say. It's just the way that they animated the scenes, each individual location, seeing it. This is one of the first times I've ever been like, oh, but I want to see it animated. Most times you're like, I want to see the animated thing live action. Then even the neurogel pen, the one that's just kind of fucked out. It was really exciting and funny and fun. Yeah, I mean, just overall, what a great
whiskers on the fucking Neelix mannequin.
Yes. What a great tribute to the show, on the show, or in the show universe. What a great love for Voyager they all had. I mean, it came together so well.
John Cena would play a great Neelix.
That's such a weird idea, but okay.
I do actually see that. Yeah.
And then to go
to Tuvix.
With Tuvix of all things.
3Vix, 4Vix, 5Vix.
Which is such a that's where Lower Decks' humor, I live for it, and then also I'm kind of starting to see it as a problem, not in a bad way, but
one of those good problems.
Yeah, exactly.
Democracy.
Having
or,
too much food.
The speed of light.
Yeah.
Okay. So I messaged you about the episode Tuvix because it fucked me up.
Yeah.
And I hear what you're saying about the things that Lower Decks does, but I feel like something Lower Decks even does is try to stealth in new ideas about old concepts. And I really feel like this
episode.
What?
I said we're using stealth as a verb a lot this episode.
Shush.
Oh, life be sneaky.
I really feel like this episode did a lot to justify the villainization of Tuvix.
This was a great perspective you had as we watched the episode, and it was enlightening. It made the episode hysterical and powerful. Thank you for this.
Because, there was a lot, Voya loves to do its moral dilemmas and leave you questioning things, but at the same time, no, Tuvix, you murdered 2 people to give yourself life, and then you kind of made everyone feel horrible about it, and that's not Starfleet. That's not super sympathetic, and then these guys going around being like, we're gonna fuck all of you up. It really put a new spin on that whole concept and that moral quandary in the first place. The resolution obviously being disgusting and hilarious.
I'm
It's-
going to kill you. It's what I do. I'm the lady captain. Die.
Well, but that especially because the first joke is, she straight up murdered Tuvix, right?
Straight up
Um,
Mariner.
Jesus
And
fucking God.
She knows that, right?
yeah, and it straight up it that joke was repeated but then addressed was really brilliant.
Oh my God, I
And-
get why you laugh, because that's MC Scat Cat right there on the screen.
No, because it was not voiced by Romany Malco.
Deep fucking cut.
Deep cut. For me, the problem is actually that Lower Decks is so good at dealing with Star Trek stuff in a way that is lighthearted and not a serial semi-dramatic episode of the week in the genre of sci-fi, that it kind of is like, there are times when the humor doesn't always land for a whole episode, and I find myself coveting the philosophical exploration of a thing from the Star Trek universe that just has a more lighthearted tone to it, and characters who speak a little more colloquially and a little less Trekky.
So sort of like Second Citizens Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
You're in the ballpark, or maybe in the parking lot at the ballpark.
Or behind the dumpster at Chili's.
Jesus, Kev,
But the Chili's is not far. The Chili's is close by, and you have skillet
It's
queso.
the good
so
Chili's. I didn't
it's
say
a
it was
good
the
Chili's.
bad Chili's.
The second episode of this season,
West Hollywood, 2 feet from Disneyland, I have seen the dumpster Kev was talking about.
Shush.
the second episode of the season didn't really do it for me all that much. I know, whatever. Given how much I loved the first episode, to go in and watch the second episode, I wasn't losing my mind over it. And then this scene was amazing. This was life-changing. But it then kind of just made me want, like, chill slice of life and or philosophical Star Trek stuff that wasn't attempting to be over the top or funny, because I'm just like, yeah, you know what? I would spend a whole day learning about what everybody's exercise habits are like in this universe and all the stupid clothes they have to wear to do them. And I'll just laugh at the conceptual humor rather than jokes. Yes.
I want to see Shaq
Having
do some
trouble.
chest workout, and I want to see Ransom Kegels. Sorry, Kevo, you were saying before I brought up Kegels.
I really hear where you're coming from, Teak, and there's a lot of stuff that I've been seeing in the news items about this show saying that they are going to get to a more serious tone again, sort of, this season, and I'm like, I don't know if that's what I want from you guys, dudes.
No.
First of all, I don't really feel like season 3 was that radical a departure from seasons 1 and 2 in any way, shape, or form. I thought it really did stay the course of what it was, but also, like, I don't know, an ongoing narrative arc, something like this, the mystery like that, I'm not sure what to expect. And I don't know how serious Lower Decks is going to try and push themselves to be. Is this going to be something major? Is it not? We already saw in the premiere that Mariner makes the reference to the Thing with Pike. So,
Right.
they're putting stuff like that in the background, but also putting it behind them.
Right.
So, generally curious for sure.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm looking for something really serious, but I definitely think an ongoing serial component to the show that can kind of take a Star Trek event that is often dramatic and a little bit over the top and very serious, and take it to the perspective of people in universe who are just a little bit more casual and whose lives are more chaotic and who tend to just be funnier, like if just in universe, you could say that this is just a more lighthearted ship. What happens when those people have to deal with a real threat? I think it could work. And I think that gets a little closer to the thing that I'm hoping to see. Which, at the end of the day, I also would be fine if they didn't get more serious at all, but instead just kind of did the humor a little bit differently and from a different approach. I just sometimes have trouble when it is a standard sitcom setup, plot, punchlines, etc., but in the Star Trek universe. If it doesn't hit for me, I just kind of find myself longing for some exploration of Star Trek that only Lower Decks could do.
I think Lower Decks has such a unique, such a unique distinction in the Star Wars universe as something that in the Star Trek universe, that while it takes itself so seriously, it doesn't take itself too seriously. There's attention given to the fact that the dramatic stories that exist within the universe of Lower Decks are Star Trek level dramatic stories. There is nothing in Star Wars outside of, and that's where I said Star Wars earlier, outside of sort of like the Family Guy something dark side, or the Robot Chicken episodes of Star Wars that really match the timbre that recognizes both the seriousness and the humor of the universe the way Lower Decks does in such a unique way. And that's something that so few fandoms have. And I only wish that something like a What If had been able to offer the Marvel Universe that could have allowed the Marvel Universe to develop a sense of narrative tonality that Lower Decks took 50 years to give Star Trek.
Yep.
So it's been such a beautiful 2 hours, and at this point 42 minutes. I'm hoping to hit 2:45, but God only knows. It's always it's a pretty questionable experience. It's like a 3/11 New Year's Eve concert. So I am so excited for the future of general fandom. One of the things that actually binds all of our shows together is that they have powerful fandoms. When you ask Chat GPT 3.5 to write you a Stucky fic, it says, I cannot do that. And it refuses your request, but 4.0 can. And I think what I'm trying to say is that our show is all Chat GPT 4.0. Only the best AI subscribe to our show. No, but what I'm really trying to say is that the actual through line that runs through our show is that they're the things that have the most emotional resonance among the sort of random variance that represents our programming. I think that even if you are a fan of something like Ahsoka, if you were to tune in and check out RuPaul's Drag Race Down Under, you would see the same humanity that runs through the breadth of the Jedi runs through the breadth of Queens. And I obviously don't mean that in a very specific 1-to-1 ratio, but I mean that in a general sense of there's something for everyone. I'm so proud to make this show for you guys 3 times a week. But Kevo, what did we talk about today that banged the hardest for you? What was your moment of the week?
Looking at the script.
And for the record, you are in fact rubber and I am glue. You can always bounce it off of you and send it back to me.
Probably One Piece as a brand new entity. Yeah, sure. I'm gonna go with that. Teak, what about you?
Oh, no, Nico, go.
I was going to say, I've really enjoyed the One Piece soundtrack, not just what I've listened to, but what you've sent me in specific. It's really been such an incredible opportunity to not just appreciate the show, but appreciate the bigger picture of the universe so much more.
Yeah, I think for me, it's One Piece as well. In terms of like what really banged for me this week that I was watching, it would definitely be One Piece. In terms of news that I got this week, it would be that Young Men in Love has won another award. Congratulations on your Ringo. So Kevo, I'll make sure to get you an image so you can add it to the list.
Yeah, I have to update. My fucking
Fuck.
graphic and commercial, man.
How is
But-
this crazy book still winning awards? Oh my gosh, I feel so gifted. I feel gifted, lifted, and absolutely 100% lucky to be a part of this.
What's this
well, we're
one's
proud
name?
of you.
The Ringo.
Ringo.
No, this guy, this character.
Oh. It's your character, Nico.
Anyway,
Great.
there's a spout right here in front of him.
Oh, get him off air.
His name is Ringo, and the other one's name is Glad. What? You got a problem with it? Check my award credentials. But if you are looking at, did you say where you can be found?
Oh, you can find me at TK Elemental.
All right. And the thing I am most excited to talk about is Lower Decks. It was such an incredible honor to get to spend so much of this summer enjoying Voyager with Kevo and talking about it with TK, that seeing Lower Decks take the opportunity to not just celebrate, but to remember what made Voyager so special and one of a kind is the fact that none of those adventures would make any sense on any other starship was really... it just felt like Lower Decks always knows where I am. It's like a Tori Amos record. It's like written just for me. And so talking about Lower Decks, while it might have gotten the least amount of time, was certainly the most amount of my heart this week. But if you want to talk to me about any of that, or just the fact that I'm a guy who always wears baseball caps, you can check me out at Nico Action. That's NICOACTION. Get me off air before I can stumble through another phrase. I have been awake for like literally 17 hours. My brain has shut down.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So 3 things. Number 1, you got to stay safe. Number 2, you got to be brave. Number 3, you got to evolve daily. And until next time, which I think is Thursday this week, we'll see you.